of the jury, the prosecution is not going to get that man today. No, because I'm going to get him.
This is the Hagmann and Hagmann Report for today. It is Thursday, March 21st, 2013. I'm with me in studio is my son, co-host, and of course, investigator extraordinaire, Joseph Hagmann. And folks, you're about to hear 3 hours of unbiased and uncensored news, analysis, and information that's critical to your understanding as to what's taking place in these perilous times. People knew the broadcast. We do broadcast live each and every weeknight from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time. Our home base on the internet is HomelandSecurityUS.com. And of course, you can watch us as we are simulcast in high definition video on the Christians United Broadcasting Network. That link, should you decide to tune in there, is www.HomelandSecurityUS, the number one, .tk. That's Homeland Security US, the number one .tk. And we want to thank Troy from Christians United Broadcasting Network for simulcasting us. And of course, we want to thank each and every one of you for joining us. And thank you for your belief and trust in us as we walk through this incredible time period together. Joe, it's incredible. We've got a lot of news and information. Powerful show tonight we've got. And a lot of information to get through. We've got to get right to it. How are you?
Very well. It's been a long day. We are currently in the middle of a blizzard where we live. A lot of news, and we did some technical stuff here in the studio today. Spent a lot of time on something that shouldn't have taken that long.
Yeah, it's amazing. Something that would take 10 minutes to do. Took us, about 4 hours. And it's because nothing worked. The steps. Anyone who's installed routers, have you been through this nightmare, folks? Have you tried to install a router or routers or establishing networks with among computers? Did you survive? Did you rip your hair out? Did you kick anything? Did you just say, "Oh my goodness"? Or is it just us? Or is it just me? I don't know. But anyway, that aside, a lot of news, a lot of information, a lot of things going on today. We really got to get right into it. And of course, headlining the Drudge Report, Joe, isn't it interesting? We talked about this before. Is this news where DHS is monitoring the email and internet communication and traffic? Of course it's not news.
Well, it's not new news, but it is news that they are expanding a cybersecurity program that scans internet traffic headed into and out of defense contractors to include far more of the country's private civilian-run infrastructure. It goes on to say, under last month's White House executive order on cybersecurity, the scans will be driven by classified information provided by U.S. intelligence agencies, including data from the NSA, on new or especially serious espionage threats and other hacking attempts. U.S. spy chiefs said on March 12th that cyber attacks have supplanted terrorism as the top threat to the country.
Interesting. It's, I suppose, by itself, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Of course, the security apparatus is turned inward upon the American people. Meanwhile, the Department of Homeland Security and the TSA, in this insanity, the TSA will grope children, old women, older men, frightened children. But yet they're going to let the Saudis go through without even checking them. The Saudi people from Saudi Arabia, this is absolutely insane, and it shows where this regimes' loyalties lie. And it's not with you folks. You folks are not members of this club. We are not members of the club, and we have never been, and we're not going to be under this regime, under this mentality. That's where we're at.
Speaking of the TSA, a article we didn't get a chance to get to from the 19th from the Washington Times. TSA agents humiliated wounded Marine with aggressive inspection. The TSA inspectors forced a wounded Marine who lost both legs in an IED blast, who was in a wheelchair, asked him to remove his prosthetic legs at one point, and at another point to stand painfully on his legs while his wheelchair was examined. Representative Hunter, Duncan Hunter, said in his letter Monday that the Marine, who is still on active duty and showed TSA agents his military identification, was still forced to undergo this scrutiny.
Yeah. This is how we treat our veterans. This is how we treat our walking, or in this case, not walking wounded. In my view, this is Gestapo-like tactics. This is something that is unforgivable. The people that had caused this man pain, embarrassment, anguish, angst should be fired, should be punished. But it's incredible that we are allowing the United States, the citizens of the United States, get your head out of your iPads, get your head out of your computers, get your head out of the TVs, watch what's going on. And if you're flying and you see something like this take place, step in. But don't step in, not just 1, 10, 100 people, whatever you need. Step in and say, leave that man alone. We are not going to put up with this. We have to put up a fight. And Janet and Mr. Pistoli, if you are listening to this, or if you if this is forwarded to you, we will expose you. If we are in that position, we are going to step in. And I'll tell you what, we will be the fly in your ointment, because this is unforgivable, absolutely unforgivable. If we see you touching inappropriately a little girl, a little boy, an older woman, older man, an infirm person, that is not America. You are not Americans. I don't care if you're saying you're doing your job. You know what? That's the Nuremberg excuse, and we're not going to tolerate it. That's the end of the story. And if I'm there in the airport, I'll tell you, one of us is going to jail.
Yeah, I agree, as it is something you could not tolerate to stand there and watch. The way the TSA treats people in general, and not including that the returning military personnel are already labeled as potential domestic terrorists, the number one terrorist threat in the nation, and they continue with this, building up this police state. All the legislation is in place, as we talked about. Everything where we are as a nation right now, we do not live in a republic. We live in a tyrannical nation, and it just has a resemblance of freedom, an illusion of freedom. We are not a free country. We are not a free people as it stands for us as citizens of this place we are in. Listen to this headline: Drone Command Center to open in Pennsylvania suburbs. With drones quickly becoming the favorite toy of the military industrial complex, more and more operation centers are opening up all over the country. These are usually nice air-conditioned offices where soldiers sit in comfortable seats and fly remote-controlled airplanes all over the world. Some of them are used both domestically and abroad for spying purposes, while others are used overseas to kill military-aged men that ends up in its path. Now one of these bases is coming to Pennsylvania. PhillyBurbs.com reported that drones have been used by the U.S. military to kill enemies, collect intelligence, and will be piloted remotely from Horsham. The U.S. Air Force selected the Pennsylvania Air National Guard's 111th Fighter Wing for the new mission set to begin on October 1st at the Horsham Air Guard Base. About 75 full-time and 175 part-time positions are expected to be added to the wing as it establishes a ground control station for the MQ-9 Reaper unmanned aerial aircraft system. Drones will not be flown in and out of Horsham. Rather, The remotely piloted aircraft will be controlled by the military units stationed at the base from a virtual cockpit by a two-person team consisting of a pilot and a sensor operator. It is
Maybe
also
somebody. I'm sorry. Maybe somebody will shoot him down because I just got to cut in here. A 20-foot orange military drone was found floating in the Florida's Upper Keys over the weekend. It had been shot down during a training mission in January, according to the U.S. Air Force. So maybe this is called a target-rich environment. Perhaps. What do you think?
Well, it goes on to say that it's been confirmed that this base will be used to operate murder drones in other countries.
Wow. All right.
So, I mean, we know that they are setting up against us in all different forms, from continuity of government plans to the Rural Council, the Homeland Security Council, the Council of Governors. They have these Department of Homeland Security expansions, these federal government agencies expanding to the point where it doesn't matter how small your town is. You don't have to live in a big city to be targeted by these people. The checkpoints aren't at the borders; they're in the country. Tennessee had Viper, the TSA mobile checkpoints, as well as the rest of the country did. Last year, I forget what the numbers were, but there's going to be a 9,000 plus checkpoint for 2013. They're going to add 9,000 new checkpoints in the USA this year, across the USA, different locations. And they are continuing this push of building up a resistance against the American people, or appearing to do that for whatever reason. But they are conditioning us to be ready, or looking like they're setting up for a civil war. But one thing that I did see, we didn't cover yesterday, there is no more drones for the CIA. And this was from the Daily Beast. No more drones for the CIA. And I just screwed that up. Okay. Yeah, the CIA is close to taking a major step toward getting out of the targeted killing business, maybe with the remote control aircraft. 3 senior U.S. officials tell the Daily Beast that the White House is poised to sign off on a plan to shift the CIA's lethal targeting program to the Defense Department. So it's not ending a drone program; it is moving it to a different agency that has the same goals, or even worse, because the DHS is a much closer branch to the DOD is much closer to the DHS than to the CIA. They are set up in a lot of these, like I mentioned, the Rural Council, the continuity of government, to be an arm, especially in civilian operations, civilian disturbance operations. The Department of Defense, along with the Department of Homeland Security, will be the people on the ground in any terrorist attack, any environmental disaster we see. They are part of that team of people that will come.
Yeah, it's amazing. I was talking to someone today who was giving me information about exactly what some of these military bases. There are buildings, DHS buildings within the military bases, and he said, they're not very well liked by the military. However, there's still a working relationship there. So there is this seamless integration between the Department of Homeland Security and the United States military, and this integration is growing on a daily basis. When you hear, for example, yesterday, I received multiple confirmations about Apache attack helicopters in southwestern Pennsylvania training for something, but they were flying low over the Allegheny River, and then following the different rivers and encircling the city of Pittsburgh, the center of Pittsburgh. It's interesting that these helicopters are being sighted more frequently, and they train, obviously, the way they fight, or they fight the way they train. What are they preparing for? Well, we know what they're preparing for. It is urban warfare. Folks, it's got to be clear to everybody. It has to be that we are the enemy. The people who are questioning the government are the enemy. And that's the top of the second hour, or maybe the bottom of this hour. I just want to get into something a little bit kind of that covers. It's difficult to explain to people about, well, when there's a conspiracy, for example. a conspiracy. How do you convince people that there's just one party? Well, how about this? Would it convince you to know that, for example, remember the CPAC conference that went on CPAC here recently? And Joe, I think you've got some information on this, or a video or audio clip on this.
Yeah.
But remember CPAC, the conservative caucus, and people still think, hey, we have the Republicans and Democrats in power, or the conservatives and the progressives in power in Congress. Well, Mitch McConnell, remember him? He gets up and in CPAC makes this boisterous speech. Obamacare should be repealed, root and branch, and we are not backing down from this fight. Yes.
Let's play part of that clip right now.
Okay. All right.
It's a 7-minute clip, but we don't have to play that much of it because it's right in the open.
Okay.
I want you to take a look at that stack of paper behind me. It's the most powerful argument yet against Obamacare. What you're seeing is 20,000 pages of rules and regulations. 20,000 pages. And if you think that's bad, wait till they try to fix it. On Wednesday, we had a vote in the Senate to defund this monstrosity. Every single Republican voted to defund Obamacare. And of course, every Democrat voted the other way. And that's what these Democrats voted for. This monument to liberalism right here behind me. They're going to have a lot of fun explaining that to their constituents, I can tell you that. This law is a disaster. Anybody who thinks we've moved beyond it is dead wrong. Obamacare should be repealed, root and branch.
Okay, cut it. Okay, here's the deal. Mitch McConnell, along with a laundry list of other so-called conservatives, Republicans, who voted for the Ted Cruz amendment to completely defund Obamacare, yesterday, what did he do? He voted to fund Obamacare. So everything he said was a lie. Not a misstatement, but a lie. A bald-faced, outright lie. Now, folks, you tell me, do we have a two-party system in this country? Of course not. We've got a one-party system. It's called the ruling elite, and they are progressive/socialists. That's the only way you could possibly describe it. They are taking this country on a socialist, globalist bent. But what happened from CPAC, where everyone, I mean, and pardon me for sounding a little bit brash here, but all the conservatives were wetting themselves over, oh, what a great, how great these conservatives are. How many times is Charlie Brown going to go to kick the football that Lucy is holding until they realize? How many times are we going to vote for these people until we realize that we're Charlie Brown? And they're laughing at us, and they're using us, and that this is a single party system that is taking us. They're selling us out because those 20,000 pages. No one can understand this, and it's not about health care. It's about control and consolidation, centralization. It's about controlling the masses. It is not about health care. And Mitch McConnell and Blunt and Boozman and Chambliss and Coates and Cochran and Collins and Corker and Hatch and Murkowski and Sessions Yes, Sessions and Shelby and Wicker, all of these people and more. Perhaps they're one of your representatives. Perhaps you think, oh, we can take everything back. We can take our country back by the voting booth. Well, let me tell you something. I believe at this point, or the voting box. I believe at this point there is nothing to take back via the voting box. I'm sorry. That's the way I feel. I think the voting box is gone.
I'm glad you said that, because I wasn't sure if you'd ever come to the realization that this experiment called America is no longer America.
The ballot box is done. The mailbox is done. The soap box is basically done. And folks, what does that leave? What kind of box does that leave? Well, you better get it while it's still available, because we're not spoiling for this fight. They're bringing this fight to us, and we have to maintain the moral high ground, of course. But think about what they're doing, and this is so important. You see, this Obamacare, to shove it down our throats from the moment Pelosi walked with that giant gavel with that smile on her face to today. This is an orchestrated attack on the fundamentals of America. This is controlling 1/6 of our economy. You think we're broke now? You have seen nothing yet. You think there's poverty now? Nothing. You think that there's control now over your personal information? This Obamacare is going to be one of the final nails in the coffin. And by the way, tomorrow night from 9 to 11, Steve Quayle and V will be on this program. V being the financial insider for Steve Quayle, it's going to be a definite must-listen to program. He's going to explain Cyprus, what's going on within the European Union, and how this will affect us here in the West. Whether you're listening to this in Canada, United States, wherever, this is how he's going to explain all of this.
We got a little bit of Cyprus news we're going to hit on, but first I want to do this, if we can play this audio. President still in Israel. This, I think, is from ABC News. There's a rocket attacks happening where Obama is visiting, and this is the soundbite.
President Obama in the West Bank, meeting with Palestinian leaders now, as rockets land just a few miles away.
Which is a problem, is those rockets not making it any easier to make his appeal for peace this morning. The president saying that the creation, though, of a Palestinian state remains a priority for his administration.
Let's get right to ABC's Jonathan Karl in the West Bank this morning, where he is traveling, of course, with the president. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Robin. Several rockets fired from the Gaza Strip struck southern Israel this morning. They didn't cause much damage, but they served as a reminder that the president is visiting a country very much under fire. President Obama arrived this morning in the West Bank. His message here, the importance of peace between the Israelis and the Palestinians. But fears of war have dominated the trip. Specifically, fears that Iran is dangerously close to getting a nuclear weapon.
The greatest danger is a nuclear Iran.
In order to stop Iran's nuclear programs peacefully, diplomacy and sanctions must be augmented by a clear and credible threat of military action.
The president said when it comes to Iran, the United States stands firm with Israel.
We agree on our goal. We do not have a policy of containment when it comes to a nuclear Iran. Our policy is to prevent Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon.
Even if it takes a military strike against Iran.
I will repeat, all options are on the table. We will do what is necessary to prevent Iran from getting the world's worst weapons.
President Obama has had a frosty relationship with Prime Minister Netanyahu, but on this trip, both men have been determined to show that they are staunch allies, maybe even friends. Obama joking about meeting Netanyahu's sons.
They are very good-looking young men who clearly got their looks from their mother.
Well, I could say the same of your daughters.
After meeting with Obama for more than 2 hours, Netanyahu affirmed his trust of the president when it comes to Iran.
I'm absolutely convinced that the president is determined to prevent Iran from getting nuclear weapons.
Later today, the president returns to Jerusalem, where he hopes to bring a little campaign magic to the trip with a speech to some 600 Israeli college students. The White House sees this as an opportunity to speak directly to the Israeli people, urging them to make a new effort to make peace with the Palestinians.
And as the program progresses, we're going to be getting into this Obama's trip to Jerusalem or to Israel more, and the significance of this. It dates back to his apology tour of the Middle East as well. He's framing this for a restructuring that fits with essentially the globalist agenda and the what we talked about briefly yesterday about the 10 trade regions or economic zones of the New World Order. But we had mentioned Cyprus earlier and what's going on there. Of course, we found out today, of course, the banks are still closed in Cyprus. Now imagine this, folks, and this is why we ask you to prepare. And I'm still getting emails. Well, should I take, what should I do with money in the bank and such? This will happen. Eventually will happen in this country. What's going on in Cyprus? You will not be able to get your money out. Look, what you have is really merely a ledger or a computer screen of numbers. You don't have it in your hand. You don't own it. Now, that doesn't make the money, the folding money, any more valuable, but at least in a turn of events where banks are shut down, if you have cash money in your possession, whereas you don't have to use or rely on your ATM card, folks, you're going to be better off than 95% of the population out there. So what we're recommending right now, is have at least a month, if not two, depending on your station in life and your situation, in cash, preferably somewhere safe or in a safe in your house, if you will, of various denominations of money. Because think about this. What would happen to you tomorrow if you woke up tomorrow morning and all of a sudden the banks were closed because of, we'll say, some cyber hacking attempt or some cyber problem? Would you be able to sustain? Would you be able to go to the grocery store if they weren't accepting debit cards or whatever they call ATM cards? Would you have enough cash to buy, or food at home, or gas in your vehicle? Let's listen to what Judge Andrew Napolitano thinks about this in a clip that just came out today.
I want to talk more about what's going on in Cyprus. Europe is basically telling that small island country, if you want to get bailed out, everybody with money in a bank has got to pay up. A tax on bank deposits. Could the same thing happen here? All right, Judge Andrew Napolitano is here in New York City with us. Let's go with the big issue first of all.
Right.
Could it happen here? Could Congress pass a law and the president sign it that says your bank account is going to be taxed 5% or whatever? They could do that, couldn't they?
Yes, they could.
Nothing to stop them.
Yes, they could, because the people who have more than $100,000 in the bank are targets for any government that's looking for money to shore up its own inability to manage its finances.
Well, in the case of Cyprus, it's people with any money in the bank. They're going to have $10 and they're going to tax it.
Correct. So the deposits are guaranteed. The deposits are insured. So that when you put $1 or €1 in the bank, you're going to get the dollar or the euro back. But not in Cyprus.
They've breached that principle.
Correct. Apparently they will breach the principle because they, just like the American Congress, think they can write any law and regulate any behavior and change any law. They don't abide basic principles. We promised you'd get your money back. Oh, but we decided to change the promise because we couldn't manage the government. And the only way we can shore up our own inability to manage the government is to steal the 6 or 7 or 9% of your savings.
Look, I don't think it's ever going to happen here. I'll say flat out, I don't think it's going to happen here. The worry is that over there's going to be a run on the banks in Cyprus, and other heavily indebted countries like Spain and Italy will also have a run on the banks.
You informed me that the banks are closed at the moment.
They are in Cyprus, yes.
Stuff came up in Cyprus over the weekend. What happens when the banks open? Is it he who gets there first gets the cash? Because you know that they don't have cash in the bank equivalent to all the deposits that have been made.
Well, Charles,
that would be inconceivable.
True, but Charles has told us earlier that the authorities in Europe will stand behind the banks in Cyprus and ship in a ton of money.
And by the way, guys, I'm sure
get it.
they'll also put some sort of limits on what you can actually take out, perhaps, you know. I mean...
At any one time, maybe.
But at this point, it's already out of the bed, Judge. They can't back down. The official vote's coming tomorrow, but they can't back down.
And what happens
if
the Parliament of Cyprus basically says to those socialists in Brussels, go take a hike. We're sorry we joined the EU. We're not going along with it.
Well, then they really would have a banking collapse.
Right. The banks will collapse. They do not get the bailout money, which is the reason for this tax on the bank deposits. And they essentially, their banking system collapses and they leave the euro. They go back to whatever currency they had before the euro.
Do you even grasp how smart the British government and the British people were? He's going to love this. Stay out of the euro.
Yeah.
And if you're in, get out.
I think what's happening in Cyprus is another step towards the breakup of the euro as we know it. That's what I think.
I think so. Isn't there some political party starting in Berlin, of all places, to get Germany out of the euro because they're funding so much?
Well, why should the Germans keep on paying for everybody else who's so deeply in debt?
I really don't know how anybody other than a socialist could give an answer to that.
Which politician can win election in Germany saying, yes, we will provide our money for everybody?
What happens if the government in Cyprus goes along with this and the people throw the government in Cyprus out? It's a parliamentary system.
I think the euro's days are numbered. Can I sum it up like that?
Yes.
You would agree with that?
Yes. Yes. Philip, he's so smart!
My question is, why doesn't he think, not Napolitano, the interviewer, it can't happen here, or it's not going to happen here? What's the difference when you've got a debased, devalued economy, dollar, or whatever currency, excuse me, it can happen here, and it most certainly, in my view, will happen here. What we're seeing in Cyprus is a prelude of things to come. What happens when Spain, or God forbid, Italy, is next? Will it eventually go west? Of course. Can it? Of course. What would stop it from happening here? Has anyone stopped people like John Corzine from taking money out of a sacrosanct segregated accounts, for example, MF Global? No. He got away with stealing at least $1.6 billion. Do you think you're safe? Do you think you're special? Are you really that special where your money in your bank is safe?
It depends if you have any authoritarianism friends, or
right?
Some globalist elite buddies.
But see, here's that thought process that is being drilled in our head. It's obviously it's what Judge Napolitano had said. They could do this tax levy here, and of course the interviewer says, I don't believe it'll happen here, meaning what's happening in Cyprus happen here. That's that normalcy bias, that disconnect, and even the reinforcement of something that there's no basis for fact. We have historical precedent in Cyprus. Does he have that this has happened? Is there historical precedent here that it's not going to happen here? Of course not. Is there precedent that this happened before in the United States of America? Yes, of course. Look at the Great Depression. Look at the waverings of both before and after the Great Depression. In particular, the panic of 1907, and of course what happened in 2008 with respect to the seconds away from this market crash. Well, it was an orchestrated deal, but the fact of the matter is, we have to prepare. Folks, you listening to this program, please prepare yourself for the possibility of the banks, your bank, other banks shutting down. There would be a shortage of money, and your ATM or debit card's not working. Please prepare for that. Even if you can't, look, I don't have a ton of money in the bank. I don't know of anybody who does. But if you keep out here, at least for the next, 3, 4, 5 weeks, much of your money, leave in only what you need to pay bills with for a month or so. Keep the rest in a safe at your home or somewhere safe in your home. Why do I say to do this? Well, I mean, it's a step if and when banks do close, you don't have access to your money. At least you've got some paper currency for whatever value it might have at the time. And I'm not going to say that it's going to go from, a $20, if you've got a $20 bill, to zero overnight. It's devaluing right now at about 4% per month, but that's incredible. Some say 2, some say 4, some believe it's just fine. Well, look, protect yourself from the potential of having bank closures. You've got to do that. It's part of your preparations. It's part of preparations. It's like an insurance policy. That's all. And I'm not saying walk around with a whole big thing of money in your pocket, but at least have it accessible to you if you need it. What's the worst that could happen? You can put it back in the bank. Are you earning interest on it in the bank? You're probably paying to have it there, especially if you don't have a lot of money. You're probably paying a service charge every month to have it in the bank.
Yeah, and for those of us with little money, it is the little concern, I mean, I got like $20 in my checking account. And that's to my name right now, but I'm looking at people who have saved their whole lives, older people.
Well, of course. But even with the $20, take 15 of it and put it in your pocket. Or if it's 100, take 50 or 80 or whatever and keep it in a safe place.
Having it in the bank is the same as having paper gold.
Right. If you can't see it, own it, touch it, defend it, it doesn't exist. What are you going to do? Defend a computer screen of numbers? No, you're not. And it's just, we could drive this point home, but tomorrow night we're going to be talking with V and the financial insider, Steve Quayle's financial insider, and getting more to the bottom of what he expects. And he's on the inside of the Wall Street crowd and hears lunches with people that understand what's going on and perhaps orchestrates some of it and is here to tell us what will take place or what he expects to take place. And don't forget, the last time he was on, I believe it was in December, perhaps. I'm not sure exactly when, or January. It's been a couple of months, but everything that he said, with the exception of the complete the falling of Japan, the Japanese yen, and that's teetering now, it has come to pass. So he's got a proven track record. If you go back and listen to that program, there is a proven track record to what he's been saying. And it's not just something you could compile through internet research. Now, this guy's got some inside contacts, and I was quite surprised after listening to that program again, what has come to pass. And this will protect you. So, that said, this is so important. And folks, once again, have you taken another step today to just become a little bit more prepared? Just keep that in the back of your mind, and do what you can on a daily basis. Other news.
Yesterday, we talked about John McCain and Lindsey Graham pushing for war in Syria. Now, top Senate Democrat, joined Republican Senators McCain and Lindsey Graham. Senator Levin agrees and says the United States needs to be more aggressive and deeply involved in Syria's civil war. That also coupling with news today that a top pro-Assad Sunni cleric was killed in Damascus in a mosque along with 41 other people. A blast ripped through a mosque in the Syrian capital, killing a prominent pro-government Sunni cleric. At least 42 people have died and 84 more were wounded in the attack. Syria's SANA news agency reports that the scholar's grandson was also killed in the bombing. And I can't pronounce his name. Dr. Mohammed Saeed Ramadan al-Batoui was martyred in a terrorist suicide attack at the Imam Mosque in Mazara in Damascus. They go on to say that sirens could be heard echoing through the capital as the scene of the blast was cordoned off by the military. TV footage revealed a chaotic scene. Bodies with severed limbs strewn across the blood-stained floor of the mosque. This was the rebels who did this. The U.S.-backed funded Al-Qaeda terrorists that we put in there.
Well, so we are actually funding essentially both sides of the conflict. We are fighting Al-Qaeda, yet we're funding Al-Qaeda. We're fighting the Taliban, yet we're funding the Taliban and the mullahs. We are, can you see that? We talked about duality yesterday. This kind of is the same, on the same mental plane as what we discussed yesterday. Can you see this taking place? Can you see what's going on here? Who benefits from all this as well? The perpetual state of war. This has been talked about and talked about and talked about. The only people that benefit are the bankers, are the people that are funding both sides of this. And who benefits? Of course, as long as there is a threat. In fact, as long as we make the threat, we make it.
No, as long as we're alive, there's a threat. As long as there are people alive, there's a threat. These people eat their own children, basically. They have no regards for anyone's life. And they create war as a way to funnel wealth, as a way to control populations, the way they think, the way they feel. And I thought this was fitting from InfoWars. Obama, now the global head of Al-Qaeda. Will the president order drone strikes on the White House? President Obama is now the global head of Al-Qaeda, bankrolling, arming, and equipping terrorists around the world in order to achieve his administration's geopolitical objectives, while simultaneously invoking the threat of terrorists domestically to destroy the Bill of Rights. Since it has now been established that those merely suspected of engaging in terrorism, including U.S. citizens, are subjected to targeted drone strikes under the terms of his own prosecution of the fake war on terror. Obama must immediately order a drone strike on the White House because the facts documented in this article demonstrate that it represents that it is the headquarters of Al-Qaeda operations worldwide. The Al-Qaeda was created by Western intelligence back in 1979. The administration has given them over $500 million just this year. Also, U.S. Special Forces have trained militants in Syria. Who have pledged allegiance to Al-Qaeda, and who continue to carry out beheadings, terrorist bombings, and chemical weapons attack. The same militants, backed not only by the U.S. but by every other major NATO power, have repeatedly voiced their hatred and intention to destroy America.
Well, so here we go. And of course, that tongue-in-cheek about, Al-Qaeda and the terrorists in the White House. I mean,
no, seriously, it's fitting, because if you think about it, who is worse, the people encouraging this, who could stop it, or the people who are trying to carry this stuff out? If the Syrian rebels tried to have a civil war that was not intervened with by the U.S. and our money and our influence and our special forces, if it was just rebels versus the government, do you think there would be any kind of fighting or any kind of real? I mean, it would have been done already. Assad would still be in power because the majority of Syria is pro-Assad.
Well, of course. We have to look at these international conflicts for what they are. Wherever these international conflicts arise. Now, that's not to say that we don't have enemies. Of course, we have enemies. That's not to say that that the Taliban is good, and that's not to say Al-Qaeda is good. No. That's not to say that the Muslim Brotherhood is good.
But what it says is that while there are individual people in all walks of life that want to do harm to others, that we are the enemy. While at the same time, our government is the enemy. Funding real terrorists and labeling Christians, patriots, constitutionalists as dangerous, violent, domestic extremists. Right. With no reason whatsoever.
Well,
other than their agenda.
Okay, and the agenda has become so transparent, and I really wish people, I really want people to understand this, and wish people would demand accountability for this. If you look at what, I mean, we can go back to Kennedy, Johnson, Nixon, and so on. We can go back all through the years. And see how, I mean, from Vietnam to all of the other skirmishes and conflicts. We can go back really to the early 20th century. But where we're going with this, and especially of late, I suppose of late would be a good place to kind of focus our attention on. For example, with the 9/11, 2011 attacks in Benghazi, that is showing, opening up the fact that we are gun running for the Syrian opposition. This is an Obama / Biden / Clinton plan. And Susan Rice, all of the normal people here, all of the regular, usual suspects are involved in this. Benghazi answers the question, what are we doing? What is Arab Spring all about? It's a realignment of governments. Arab Spring is nothing more than has been nothing more than this globalist realignment of nations. And Benghazi was nothing more than a gun-running operation, compliments of the CIA, or with the use of the CIA. I mean, my goodness, there are people still calling this the CIA compound in Benghazi a consulate. It's not. It never was a consulate. It was never an embassy. People are still asking questions about security and pointing their fingers at the security being the problem. Why 4 Americans, including a U.S. ambassador, were killed? It has nothing to do with security. It has everything to do with an illegal gun-running operation to funnel weapons to the Syrian rebels to overthrow Assad. Why are we overthrowing Assad? To destabilize the region. Why? Because we are doing the work, folks, of the Saudi Arabian government, the Saudis. We are doing the Saudis' bidding. We are the military muscle, the military might of the Saudis. Understand that. They've got the money, we've got the military. It's a marriage made in hell. This is what's taking place. And once Assad gets overthrown, and by the way, in case you missed this, according to some sources, the opposition fighters in Syria, those who are wanting to toss out Assad, well, they're attempting to, of course, promote democracy in Syria. And what have our U.S. leaders done? Well, they're supporting actually a man who was educated in Indiana and lives in Dallas to be the head of the new Syrian government. I don't know if you've heard about that, but
I wanted to ask you, did you see the email? Somebody hacked Hillary's email and got the Benghazi emails. Is that real? Did you hear about that?
We're checking this out. I've got a couple of queries in about this because
I
I'm
was
not
reading
sure.
those yesterday, and I saw them before the show, and we didn't get a chance to talk about it. But I didn't even get a chance to ask you if you thought that they were actually the true emails from Hillary Clinton's account.
Well,
if they were legitimate.
I think what we have to do is really authenticate those. Anything that comes in that fashion, we have to verify the authenticity, legitimacy of these. Regardless of that, the United States and the CIA and the globalist agenda have been crossing the red line with respect to Syria numerous times. The Syrian anti-Assad people have been caught on tape talking about staging a chemical weapons attack, blaming it on Syria. Look, things are about ready to blow, especially with the CIA-backed anti-Assad people. And again, we're not Assad backers, but what are we doing here? To what end? Well, they're going to be blowing up an oil pipeline, a Syrian oil pipeline. And who's this going to affect the most? Well, the Russians. And the Russians have already said this is their red line in the sand. So we have to look at this. And at the top of the second hour, I've got something to get into because I see so many people saying, every time a nation goes against the interests of the Jews of the world or the Catholics or name a religious body or whatever. It's not about that. There is so much anti-Semitism, so much misunderstanding that it really paints a bad picture. It actually diminishes the legitimacy of the conspiracy that actually exists when you blame people like Jews. Oh, that's the Jews' fault because they run the banks and they're behind the New World Order. Or even if you get into the Catholics, you can talk about the Roman Catholicism, the hierarchy at the Vatican, but does that make every Catholic, or does that make the Catholic faith in general a cabal? No, of course not. The globalists have infiltrated every aspect, every group, every government, every organization. This is, and now today in 2013, we're looking at the end game scenario. This is where we're at. So it's not to blame it on a Zionist or a Jewish cabal is just so incorrect and so intellectually deficient that it's incredible. But watch Syria, and of course we talked about Obama being in Israel. Obama really, he turned down. He actually refused to address the Knesset. He actually said, "No, I'm not going to address the Knesset." Imagine Netanyahu coming to the United States and getting an invitation to address Congress, and having him say, "Nah, thanks, but no thanks." How would that fly? It wouldn't be good. So the core issue here, Obama has sent a clear message to the Arabs, to the Palestinians, that Israel is essentially just a thorn in his side. And you know what? He's treating Israel like dirt. And of course, we go back to Genesis, we go back to the judgments because of how we treat Israel, the God's people. And some will argue, well, Israel is not the nation. It's not the nation of Israel. Well, it's God's land promised to the Jews. So whether you call it, whatever you want to call it,
it's God's land, and his Jews are his chosen people.
Right. But a lot of people attempt to politicize the biblical aspect of this. A lot of people attempt to politicize the religious aspect, which is not.
Yeah.
And
they do this. Yeah. They do this because they either have the anti-Semitic belief system that so many people do. I see it all the time. The internet forums are horrible with that. And even as the Bible states that there in the end times there will be people that will call themselves Jews, that will be the synagogue of Satan. They will not be Jews, but will call themselves as such, and they will bring about, start to bring about all this destruction, and they will, reap what they sow. But the
exactly.
purpose of people, I mean, like we always say, the nation of Israel is so small. All this attention is on it. All this hate is there. Why? There's no other real explanation. That'd be like everybody in the world hating everybody from Rhode Island or New Jersey for no reason whatsoever, no explainable reason. Why? I mean, it makes no sense unless the Bible is accurate. You're muted.
Yes, I am. The Bible is accurate. You're 100% right. I do that a lot. And that comparison or that analogy is to me kind of, I can relate to that. The Jews are no more responsible. Someone might say, well, Rothschild was a Jew. Well, look,
that's like people who call themselves Christians who are involved in, defrauding people, crime, continual, perpetual sin without repenting, without care. I mean, these people are preying on the human civilization, that the society they have constructed pretty much is a jail cell. So all the wealth goes upward, while we remain the ones who generate all the wealth yet they are the ones who collect 95, 98, 99% of it.
Well, it's kind of like as well too, saying that, hey, well, Hitler was a Catholic or a Christian. He professed to be. It's just absolutely. It's not even people. I won't even discuss that on that level. I won't even dignify that any further with discussion. But there's so much other news, and then, like I said at the top of the second hour, please tune in because I do want to cover something that's going to lay the foundation for everything else that we're going to be talking about as well.
All right. Well, what I'll do is I'll play this clip about what's happening in Cyprus as panic over Cyprus banking is reaching levels of rioting and other things are happening. And I'll cue up this clip right now. And then we'll go to break and we'll come back with what you got.
The Parliament in Cyprus has delayed until Tuesday a decision on whether to allow an EU bailout, which will cost its citizens millions of their hard-earned euros. Every bank customer will have their cash taxed if it goes through. The plan caused panic over the weekend, with people emptying ATM machines, fearing their life savings could be plundered. RT's correspondent Tessa Arcilia reports on the implications.
The EU finance ministers and the International Monetary Fund had agreed upon a 10 billion euro bailout for the country on the condition that this bank deposit tax be imposed. Now, this could amount to up to 9.9% of those who have more than 100,000 euros in the bank. And for many people there, it's their entire life savings that they have, that they feel are now in trouble. And the panic that has been stirred over the weekend, people trying to get money out of the cash machines, but electronic transfers have been stopped and the machines have been running out of money, and people there are calling this essentially unfair, unjust, and simply robbery. Their savings being taken away from them. The president of the country, however, has been painting this acceptance of the bailout as crucial for the country. He says that if this bank tax, this requirement is not passed, then the country might be forced to get out of the eurozone area, and therefore some people feel that the country has really been put in a position where it has no choice but to accept everything that is being handed down by Brussels, by EU leaders, by the meetings that they have here. As far as the people are concerned, again, they really see this as an infringement of what is supposed to be theirs. And this is unprecedented in the sense that this is the first time that a requirement for a bailout is actually means dipping into the personal savings of citizens. That this is the first time it has happened. Officials here are saying that this is not going to be a precedent, that is not going to be a trend. However, already there is doubt among EU citizens as to whether or not this line, a red line that they thought would never be crossed, has actually already been crossed. And if we look again at what may be the biggest factor in disrupting the very fabric of the European Union is this kind of social dissatisfaction, this kind of a protest from the people where they are not happy with the kind of decisions that their leaders are making, as it directly impacts the very quality of their lives.
Well, the aftershocks of the EU's proposition have been felt in countries both inside and outside the Eurozone. RT's Tom Barton has the details.
Unfair, unprofessional and dangerous were the words that Vladimir Putin used through his spokesman about this tax on deposits in Cyprus that would be necessary for that 10 billion euro EU IMF loan. Russian banks, Russian businessmen and exceptionally rich Russian individuals hold disproportionately huge deposits in Cyprus given the country's size. The exact number of billions is estimated to be above 10, but the exact number could be far higher. It's very hard to establish. It's partly because of that reason that the EU wanted a tax to try and distribute the burden equally and to avoid money laundering. There are reports in the Greek media that the Russian state energy giant Gazprom proposed its own bailout to Cyprus in return for energy exploration rights around the island, but it was turned down because Cyprus wanted a solution from within the EU. All of this does raise questions about the future of Russian deposits in Cyprus, about whether this tax will hurt more investors or the banks that hold their deposits if those deposits are withdrawn. It also raises questions over a 2.5 billion euro loan given by Russia to Cyprus, which may itself not be extended.
And that is just some of the news coming out of Cyprus. Folks, you're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report this Thursday, March 21st, 2013. We'll be right back after these short messages. Stay with us.
Hi, folks. Doug Hagmann here. You might know me as the co-host from the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, or as a frequent guest on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. If you're like me, you're tired and confused over today's headlines. You just don't know where to turn for accurate, concise information about really what's going on, what's truly going on in today's society. If you don't know where to turn for accurate, well-researched, and properly vetted news, I've got a suggestion. In fact, it's a requirement. Bookmark Canada Free Press. That's CanadaFreePress.com on the internet. It's just not for Canada. It's for news across the world. Judy McLeod, founding editor, has put together a vast array of talented writers like Kelly O'Connell, Daniel Greenfield, Dr. Eileen Johnson-Powell, a lot of guest columnists, very talented writers. Folks, that's Canada Free Press at CanadaFreePress.com. Now mobile friendly. Follow on Facebook, because without America, there is no free world.
Survival of the fittest. In any and all situations, survival is your number one priority. That requires being tough and thinking smart. And the folks at Freeze Dry Guy are going to help you do just that. They have a long-range patrol ration entrees, what they call the Brick Pack. When you're in survival mode, it is absolutely the best item for your survival pack or bug-out bag. You can go farther, faster, and carry more food with the LRP cold weather ration entrees. Not only do these long-lasting, durable entrees help sustain you or your family through the harshest environment or situation, they are by far the most delicious of their kind. No contest. With a variety of tasty entrees, you can't beat the LRP Brick Packs. Let Freeze Dry Guy help you in your survival situations. Go to freezedryguy.com. That's freezedryguy.com. Or call 866-404-3663. That's 866-404-FOOD.
The United Nations is now speaking out against the U.S. drone war. The UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights and Counterterrorism is calling the drone program in Pakistan a violation of the country's sovereignty. UN official Ben Emerson said the drone campaign is being carried out without the consent of the people of Pakistan. This after investigating the U.S. drone program by meeting with representatives of tribal areas in Pakistan that have been hotbeds for drone strikes. It's the strongest statement made by an international official against the U.S.'s targeted killing program. Back in January, Emerson said he would investigate 25 drone strikes in Pakistan, Afghanistan, and other overseas drone targets. The White House has yet to respond to Emerson's findings. As we've reported in depth here on RT, the drone strikes in places like Pakistan have angered local people and stirred anti-American sentiment in regions where civilians have died as a result of the strikes.
You want answers? I'll take every title you want. I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to hour number 2 of this Thursday, March 21st edition of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Joe Hagmann here with my co-host and father, Doug Hagmann, and he's got some news he's going to be talking about. And tomorrow he might not be talking as well because he has to go to the dentist for a tooth problem. And I mention that because somebody in the chat room feels your pain as they are going through the same thing you are.
Well, yeah, this isn't exactly a tooth problem. This is a major situation. I can feel. I just happened to check right before this show, or right at the beginning of the show. Yeah, don't let that go. I got to tell you, especially now. We talk about preparations too. A lot of the preparations we've got to think too about our health and about while we can still go to the dentist if we can. I mean, don't put that off. As much as I dislike dentists and spiders and getting shot at, at least the first one, going to dentist, is something I can do, and others can do. Don't put that off if at all possible. Even find a dentist who can take payments if you don't have the money right up front, and a lot of them will actually. But yeah, some surgery tomorrow, and I'm looking forward to that. So we'll see what happens with that. But Joe, I got to ask you a question, and I'll throw this out to the listening audience as well. What's the first job of any conspiracy, whether that conspiracy would be in the political realm or in a crime or within a business office itself? What's the first job of conspiracy or the conspirators? Do you know?
Well, it would be sitting down and planning out what their possible ways of committing whatever act they're going to commit will be.
Well, and I'm sure the folks in the chat room can also contribute to this. Of course, the planning that goes into it, but really, I think everyone really should understand this, because this is the foundation for what we're going to be talking about, or what we've been talking about, and will continue to talk about. Instead of playing the Republican-Democrat blame game, the false right-left paradigm, the fictitious Republican-Democrat two-party system that we have right now, the first and most important job of any conspiracy, regardless of what venue that the conspiracy might exist in, is to convince everybody, and that includes you, ladies and gentlemen, that no conspiracy exists. Because those who conspire, their success will be determined largely by their ability to convince you that you're nuts. The elite of the academic world, the mass communications, the media, the even a lot of the talk show hosts always just poo-poo the existence of any insiders. They merely serve to camouflage their operations. That's exactly what they're doing. If you recall as a child, remember those those pictures in the children's books, where you've got a picture of a landscape, and then you've got to find something, whether it be like a dog pulling or a dog with a dog sled, we'll say, or a horse pulling a cart, or something like that. You've got to find it within this picture. It's kind of like a picture in a picture. And a lot of times, you look at the picture, you look at the images, and you're not seeing it. Well, sometimes, amongst the trees and bushes and flowers and such, it's concealed in there. And a lot of times you can't find it, so you got to go to the back of the magazine that you're looking at to look at the answer. And then once you see it, once you see that dog sled or whatever the case might be, then by looking at that picture within the picture, then you can see the real picture. It's that part of the picture that we are focusing in on. That's what this show does in the larger sense, because it is that picture within the picture that will be the most critical part of the entire conspiracy realm. Now, the picture planners of the mass media are creating these landscapes for us which deliberately hide the real picture. We talk about how to discover the hidden picture in the landscapes that we see every day, whether it's from the newspapers or from the television or from the radio or even internet broadcasters or internet sites. Once we see through this camouflage, once we recognize how to see through it and recognize a picture within the picture, then we can gain important understanding of what's going on. Millions of people today, and I know I'm sure just about every listener, We're concerned, we're frustrated over what's going on in our country, especially in our country, but wherever you might be listening to this. We feel that, don't you feel that something's drastically wrong, that something is, that there's something going on?
Yeah.
That
the intensity of that feeling for some continues to grow, and for good reason.
That's right. You look at this picture, and there's something about the picture that just strikes you as being odd. Well, you're seeing the your mind's eye, your discernment is able to see that there is something in that picture, although you might not be able to define it. Although it's well hidden, you still realize it's there. It is this nugget. It is this point, what we're trying to uncover. See, we could have a website that will scream at the Department of Homeland Security and the TSA agents and their appointments of the Muslim Brotherhood people into high positions and out these people. Of course, we could do that, but that's like treating the symptom of a much larger problem. That's addressing the result of the inherent problem, and not the problem itself. It's a superficial way. So when you see websites, you go to websites and you see, well, John Pistoli or so and so was elected or appointed to head up the DHS. This panel or that panel. Yes, that's the problem. And we can talk about that until we're blue in the face. But until we recognize that that's just the symptom or the result of a bigger, more well-hidden problem, then and this is what we try to do. We try to go right for that nugget that's hidden amongst the landscape, the trees and whatever. But, and I've seen this too on political message boards, and you hear this on in the political venue. We keep electing the presidents. We keep electing the representatives who promise, and we just heard it today with McConnell. Oh, we're not going to. I'm going to stand. We're not going to pass this. And what does he do? Yesterday, he votes in favor of to fund Obamacare. And we look at this, but yet people keep electing these representatives. They seem to promise faithfully to stop this insanity. Yet they put their full force and efforts behind it. And once again, people are saying, well, wow, they turned on us. No, that was their plan all along. They get up there to talk, and they make a good speech, and they get applause, and they get their money, and they get their backing, and then they go and do what they were going to do in the beginning. Despite all high hopes and promises of the ballot box, our problems continue to worsen, regardless of who's in office, whether it be Bush or whoever, Obama or Nixon, or there's a list of them, right? And same with the representatives. The basic policies, there's a continuation of agenda. And Joe, you and I talk about this all the time, this continuation of agenda, don't we? I mean, isn't this at the heart of it? Okay.
Yeah, not only that, let me read something for you here. The continuity of operations, this is FEMA. I might have read some of this yesterday, I don't remember. But the continuity of operations, this program provides the foundation for the nation's first essential function, enduring constitutional government, if that's what they want to call it, and the foundation for the tiers of the national response framework, operational governments at all levels, local, state, and federal, capable of performing their essential functions under all conditions. Continuity of operations as defined by the National Security Presidential Directive 51 and Homeland Security Presidential Directive 20 and the National Continuity Policy Implementation Plan is an effort within individual executive departments and agencies to ensure that the primary mission essential functions continue to be performed during a wide range of emergencies. Now, some of these, you might read that and say, well, that doesn't sound so bad, because, we need to keep these essential functions going. Water, sewage, electricity. But that's not all they're talking about. I got some information on the RFID biometric implantable microchip today that I'm going to get into. Something was passed in the House or signed into law on the 13th of this month, and we're going to get into that later.
Okay, but you make a good point. You make an excellent point here. The continuity of agenda. Now, as you rightfully point out, of course, we need the continuity of government in a constitutional republic. Of course, that's important. However, it's far beyond that. But look, here's the point. The other points I'm really focusing in on. Roosevelt had said, in politics, nothing happens by accident. And if it does happen, you can bet it was planned that way. Well, obviously, he was in a good position to know. And we believe that many of the major world events that are shaping our destinies right now are taking place because people plan them that way. Or if we were dealing just simply with the law of averages, for example, half of the events affecting at least the United States well-being should be good for America. Don't you agree? I mean, if everything was planned for the good of the country, at least some of the things that took place would be for the good of the country. But we're not dealing with coincidence. We're not dealing with stupidity, but we are dealing with planning and brilliance, and the planning that has been going on for at least 100 years longer, of course, but here in the, shall I say, the modern era of America for at least the last century. It's all planning and brilliance. And those people who ascribe stupidity and coincidence to the Obama regime or the Bush regime don't understand history. And when you talk, folks, when you talk with your fellow neighbors and your friends and your family members, and they bring this up, they bring up, well, things are bad, but it's not because of any conspiracy. Just remember, one of the biggest, or one of the most important aspects of conspiracies, their success of a conspiracy, the first job of any conspiracy, regardless of the venue, is to convince everyone that no such conspiracy exists. And that's what we're dealing with. Now, we have to ask ourselves, too, why are all the so-called reputable talking heads out there? And I don't care what station you watch, what channel or what show you watch.
What's reputable?
Well,
what's your
course.
definition of reputable? Just known because they're positions, or?
Of course. You've got people out there that, I mean, of course you see Britt Hume and William Crystal and other talking heads, for example, on Sunday morning on Fox, and you've got the other side of the equation on MSNBC and then on CNN. You've got all of these people, and even people in academia and commentators. They reject the cause and effect of conspiratorial theory of history. Why do they do that? Well, for one reason, of course, is they fear being ostracized. And the same is true to some extent within the media, but it's all about the money and a lot of times. And it's interesting because a lot of times the very same people, and especially those in the higher academia, will profess to be tolerant and broad-minded, but in practice it's just a one-way street. All of the tolerance, all of the broad-mindedness is progressive, not conservative. And I use those terms to describe both a social, religious, and financial. But we are looking at a system that has been in place over the years that has been over the years, these people have such a vested emotional interest in the outcome. They have a vested financial interest in the outcome. And who are these people? Well, these people are connected to the very people that run the things that are causing us to decline, or are causing us or pushing us to this one world governance, new world order. Now, politicians and intellectuals are attracted to the concept that events were propelled really by some mysterious tide of history, or by happenstance, or by happy accident at times. By this reasoning, they hope to escape the blame that is coming when things go wrong, and they will go wrong. And there will be bank runs, and there will be a civil war here on the streets of America, which explains, for example, why the Department of Homeland Security, Jenna Napolitano, will not answer the question about what they're doing with all of the weapons, all of the materials, why the Department of Defense is not saying why they're practicing here in urban America. The most effective weapon, however, and ladies and gentlemen, I know you understand this, but it's always good to really kind of get reassurance on this. The most effective weapon used against people like us who say, look, there is historical evidence of a conspiracy. There is a conspiracy that exists. The most effective weapons used against this are ridicule and satire. Is that not true? They're very potent weapons that can be and are used very cleverly to avoid any honest attempt at refuting the facts. Have you noticed this? The birth certificate issue? Perfect example. No one likes to be ridiculed, really. I mean, rather than being ridiculed, most people will keep quiet, for example. Well, they won't even touch the subjects. How many have touched the subject of Obama's constitutional eligibility, at least with the vigor it deserves? Not many. The extent to the ridicule is actually at absurd levels. And we have to fight this. We have to understand and not buckle into this ridicule and not support various people's prejudices against the truth. And certainly prejudice, speaking of that, as I mentioned earlier, isn't it interesting? Because of racial and religious bigotry, for example, there will be people who will take very small fragments of legitimate evidence. And there is legitimate evidence, for example, of a Jewish cabal, very small, or a Catholic, or whatever. Yeah, I mean, insert name here. But they'll take it to absurd levels, saying, well, this conspiracy, for example, is totally the fault of the Jews or the Catholics or the Masons, when 98% of the Masons don't know what's going on with Catholics the same way, or the Jews, or don't have those inclinations. Those people who are on boards, on forums, on talk shows, with a mouthpiece, they're not helping expose the conspiracy, but sadly they're playing into the hands of those who want the public to believe that all conspiratorial talk is just nonsense. And we need to stay away from that. And we need to, and that's why we attempt to really, really make efforts to say that this is not about, for example, the Catholic religion. It's about the certain elements within the Vatican hierarchy power. But in most cases, the progressive mindset is to just accuse all of those who discuss conspiracies being paranoid, wingnuts. We've heard it time and time again. With the leaders of our academic halls of academia, and of course the communications, the mass media, they've got this attitude, this sneering attitude toward the people who are looking into the historical things that have happened, whether it be, and I mentioned the Titanic earlier in an earlier program. Isn't it interesting that there is a conspiracy involving the Titanic and even Pearl Harbor, but and other, and of course 9/11 and so on. But when you look at, for example, the Titanic, was it a coincidence that it was owned by J.P. Morgan and the people the very people at the time wanting to implement the Federal Reserve were being fought by the people who perished? Some of the people who perished on the Titanic. Is that a coincidence? And is it a coincidence and I could go on and on about the coincidences with the Titanic, but that's just one example I'm using as someone could say, boy, you're off your nut. You're just a wing nut. Well, no. If you look at not the revisionist history, if you look at the history as it happened and investigate, you'll see that the conspiracy, once again, the biggest job, the most important job, is to convince people that the conspiracy never existed. So this is kind of the framework in which we are approaching the information that we are attempting to provide to you, because when we look at Cyprus, we look at Syria, we look at Benghazi, we look at the Arab Spring, we look at the events taking place here in the country. It's much more than a screaming website or screaming blog saying, it's the infiltration of the Islamic radicals into the Department of Homeland Security. Yes, it is, but it's more. It's much more than that. Or it's the again, I'm certainly not giving it a pass, because when you look at, for example, DHS recently saying, hey, Saudi Arabian passengers, TSA, you get a pass, go. No, not a problem. But yet they will feel up and nuke your kids and your parents and your family. You don't think there's something wrong here? Are you really serious? Of course there's something wrong here. And we just have to be very honest. We have to investigate the facts and come to logical conclusions, no matter how unpleasant those conclusions are. I think, and that's to explain the framework of not only tonight's program, but of all of our programs. And I think that's just so important to really understand. And understand that there is a very evil component to what we're seeing, that this evil component has been in existence for a long time. And we have, it was once written there were 14 signposts. There were 14 signposts to slavery. And I don't recall specifically when these signposts were referenced, or who wrote them, or whatever. But if you search on the internet 14 signposts to slavery, you'll find that we've actually pretty much passed each signpost, including the attempt to abolish private ownership of handguns or of weapons, the detention of individuals without judicial process, requirements that private financial transactions be keyed to Social Security numbers, for example, or other identifying numbers. Are we not seeing that now play out right now? The compulsory psychological treatment for non-government workers or public school children. Are we seeing this break into the system now? Of course we are. Wage and price controls. Will we be seeing that? Have we seen it before? Will we see it again? Of course. Look, this is all coming to a head. And if you have any doubts whatsoever, just please look at history. Look at the role of the families, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the CFR, the elite. Look at the role of the revolutionaries, the Students for Democratic Society, the Panthers, the various revolutionary groups from the 60s and 70s, and how they've reformed. And then at the top, put those families I mentioned in the CFR and the Trilateral Commission. And on the bottom, put those revolutionaries, and press from both ends, top and bottom. Who's in the middle? It's us. We're in the middle. Understand that. And understand, too, that there's a world game afoot. The global control for the world. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is a conspiracy fact. The real name, I think, is 1984, perhaps 1984 on steroids. We are going to have, and we're going to see, and we're seeing systematic population reduction. We're seeing the goals of this humanitarian utopia. But before these plans can be fully implemented, there's got to be a single, all-powerful world government. You can't do this if you have got sovereignty, if you've got a constitution. People ask, well, why is the Constitution? Why are we, what's going on? Why is it becoming irrelevant? Because of the globalists. Please keep that in mind. I know that some of this to you, some of this information might be, well, I knew that. But there are a lot of people that don't. So just to let you know that this is kind of the framework in which we are looking at this, looking at everything that's taking place.
Yeah, and you're so right on the money. As I had this bookmarked, HR 307. I'll put the link in the chat room. This is important. I want everybody to bookmark this and read this. And not only read it, but there are listings of laws and different departments and agencies and documents. Follow those links, because what I just posted in the chat room gives the clearance for the implementation of a implantable medical device, or better known as a Class 2 Special Controls implantable radio transponder system for patient identification and health information.
Nice.
And I looked everywhere for the 23rd, the 2 days it's supposed to be the date it's implemented.
Yeah.
And I looked everywhere for that language, and, because I know it's coming, and I couldn't find it. And so I just keep looking. I have an RFID alert on my email, but this didn't come from an RFID alert. I bookmarked this, I don't know how long ago, but this bill was passed in the House and became law, and it is known as the Pandemic and All Hazards Preparedness Reauthorization Act of 2013. Now, what this does is amends the Public Health Service Act to require the Secretary of Health and Human Services to submit the National Health Security Strategy to the relevant congressional committees in 2014. It revises the strategy's preparedness goals, in part to specify that the drills and exercises included in periodic evaluations of federal, state, and local and tribunal preparedness response capabilities also include drills, exercises to ensure medical surge capability for events without notice. But it continues to go on, where it talks about using electronic devices, implantable devices, for transmission of medical records in real time. And it talks about how they can search for diseases or problems in blood. And what this does, it dovetails with the FDA guidance for industry and FDA staff for the Class 2 device. This is a biometric monitoring program, and you can go to the FDA's own website and look up, I'll just post in the chat room here one thing I'm looking at. This is Bio Research Monitoring General Information. It talks about what they are going to do and how they are going to do it. What we are going to see is companies like Verichip or other companies that create these RFID implantable microchips. And what they do is basically, we know what this is, and we know that it's coming. Now, Verichip has a human implantable RFID microchip with a 16-digit identification number. It'll keep your personal health record. It is FDA approved and says it has no global tracking.
And this is all in the name of convenience, or not all in the name, but partially in the name of efficiency and convenience. Yet when you look at the 20,000 pages of the Obama healthcare bill, which this kind of is a, shall we say, an artery thereof, it's nothing but, it has nothing to do with convenience. It has nothing to do with efficiency. It has everything to do with control. The 323, you know what, the 323 date is really not as important as the content of that measure that you're talking about. Are we going to be walking around, whether it's a stent, and how many of us have stents in an artery, in our heart, or whatever. How many people have pacemakers as the population ages? And I saw this most hideous, and I mean hideous, posting about the healthcare bill on a, I think it was the USA Today website, or no, I'm sorry, it was a Wall Street Journal website that kind of dovetails with what you're saying, Joe, about the implantable device. There was this anonymous poster to this Mitch McConnell vote for the healthcare bill, and then the discussion ranged about things like this and about pacemakers and think about this.
No, let me tell you the definition of a Class 2 device here, if you don't mind. The guidance of the Class 2 medical device represents the Food and Drug Administration's current thinking on this topic. It says it does not create any rights for a person and does not operate to bind FDA or the public into anything, but there are alternative approaches that satisfy these requirements. It's just so sickening. But the background here. This guidance document was developed as a special control guidance to support the classification of the implantable radio frequency transponder system for patient identification and health information into a Class 2 special control. The device is intended to enable access to secure patient identification and corresponding health information in humans. The guidance issued is in conjunction with the Federal Register notice announcing the classification of implantable radio frequency transponder systems for patient identification and health information. Now, AIP. The AIP is the FDA's application integrity policy. The policy focuses on the integrity data and information and applications submitted for agency review and approval. Now, they have, in this preparedness bill, bypassed that. There is no longer a need for pre-approved devices. What they were doing is they had a period of time, and if you go to the FDA's website, you can read what their goals were. They have them through blocks of time. This says starting in 2014, but through 2018. The National Disaster Medical System requires a secretary to take steps to ensure that a range of public health and medical capabilities are represented in this system, and to take into account the needs of at-risk individuals in the event of a public health emergency. It authorizes the secretary to determine that's the pay. But this optimizing state and local all hazards preparedness response. Now, remember the title of this bill: Preparedness, Pandemic and All Hazards Preparedness Reauthorization Act. They don't need a pandemic to implement this. This is stating they are allowed to go ahead and do this, and they are planning to do it. And they say all shall be concluded before September 30th of 2018. But to get to the long and short of it, it talks about basically making you submit yourself with one of these RFID transponders for medical information. Otherwise, you will be, what is it called? The black sheep. We know what this does. This is, in my opinion, the mark of the beast when they say, this is to improve the health, alert, communications, and surveillance and public health situational awareness. It's for the betterment of the world, so we can better establish if there is a pandemic before the people would even realize it. Some of these steps are to develop, implement, and evaluate the situational awareness network, modernize and enhance biosurveillance activities, and improve information sharing, coordination, and communications of biometric systems supported by the Health and Human Services. It requires the network to include data from the community health centers and other health centers. It defines biosurveillance as the purpose of gathering real-time biological data from humans and zoonotic disease activity and threats to all humans and animal health in order to achieve early warning and identification, such as health threats, early detection and prompt ongoing tracking of health events, and overall situational awareness. Requires a National Biodefense Science Board to provide expert advice and guidance regarding the measurable steps the Secretary should take to modernize and enhance biosurveillance pursuant to the efforts of the HHS, Health and Human Services, to ensure comprehensive, real-time, all-hazard biosurveillance capabilities. Now we can, I'll stop reading there, but we can get into the implementation aspects of this a little bit later. But because it's very, listen to this sentence. This is from the FDA, and I'll stop here. The term, okay, I'll read the sentence and I'll give you the definitions of what they mean. What they break this down into, the purpose is to, for scientific review and for prevention and information gathering of health patients, but emphasize the importance of observing the interagency or the integrity of the applicant or its application. The center makes the AIP decision based upon input from the Office of Compliance, the center's reviewing unit, the field office or center investigation unit as appropriate parts of other agencies. It goes on to say this document does not confer any rights for or on any person and does not operate to bind the FDA or the public. But this is the agency's current thinking on the consistent implementation of the RFID chip. And the definitions of applicant includes any person within the meaning of the certain law they have in the FDA, which is every person. But they go on to say basically that in this document they say they have to lie by omission, because to put what they want to write in here would be detrimental, in other words, as to what they say. They have to lie by omission, because if they don't, well, people might stand up ahead of time. They might do something to make sure they're not one of the people who receives these. They are trying to keep this as hush-hush as possible. There are many PDFs, there are many documents, laws that they use to... Well, the way they word these PDFs is so ridiculous. When they say, they're going to implement this, but they're not going to force it on you. But they're going to use the Office of Compliance and, the Department of Homeland Security to make sure and to follow up. And they have centers, these special centers, where they're going to make sure that FDI guidelines are followed. And apparently this is going to be effective very soon. But yeah, the FDA approved this in 1991, the use of the chips, but now they are actually ready to implement this. And I haven't found a date. I know that in 2014 is when they plan on starting. How they're going to do it, what they're going to do, I don't know. But they're going to do it. And they plan on this for a long time. This is not regional. This will be global. So before this happens, in my opinion, before 2014, they're going to have a grip across the whole world in order to implement this, because the mark of the beast isn't just for the USA. It's not just for one country or another. It's for the whole world. Both big, great and poor, rich and poor, powerful or homeless, basically.
Yeah, And I think what we're seeing here with what you cited is we're seeing the mechanism, one of the mechanisms. What are two of the biggest mechanisms for control, for power over a population? You've got, excuse me, you've got the economy, you've got their money. You control somebody's money, you control the person, but the second part is you control their ability to seek and obtain health care or medical care or longevity, for longevity, I should say. You've got two areas here, and they're centralizing. They've centralized the monetary, and they're further centralizing it through a global one world economy. And as we talked about yesterday, NAFTA and GATT, two big propulsion systems to create this one world global economy. But now look at the healthcare, the socialized healthcare. Everyone thinks, hey, this is a great idea. Healthcare free healthcare, or affordable healthcare. Well, if you look at the implementation of that through other countries, that comes at a price. That comes at a price of control and taking from the haves, or the people that have earned money throughout their lives and their parents and what have you, and funding the people who are oppressing the system or being part of the oppression of the system. So you're looking at a causative relationship between the two. What better way to meld the two than to centralize both the monetary and the healthcare? And this was, by the way, what Obama had started out to do. And the mechanism is, of course, some sort of a chip or device that will keep track of records, but more importantly, will keep track of the person, just like on the monetary side. These are parallel objectives of the globalist agenda. See, for example, take a few steps back away from that picture where that little picture-in-picture is hidden. All of these plans, whether it's the healthcare, affordable healthcare, or whether it's the wars, or whether it's the economic problems, all of these are hand-in-hand, parallel railroad tracks running side by side to a single objective. And everything else that we see in the picture, it's all to hide that one little dog sled or pony pulling a cart, and that pony pulling the cart is that objective, and everything else is the white noise of the people, of the talking heads. And when you bring something like this up, for example, it's you're nuts, you're crazy. Well, it's not going to happen.
Let me read this bill. More on this bill here. They say enhancing medical countermeasure review. What this does, it says it requires a secretary to give a sponsor being the supplier of the chip, an authorization, a written authorization explaining the scientific and regulatory or other obstacles to getting this approved. Licensing or clearance of such product or use, including specific actions to be taken by the secretary and the sponsor to overcome these obstacles. Conditions such an authorization with respect to the emergency use of an unapproved product on the collection and analysis of information concerning the safety and effectiveness of the product when the authorization is in effect and for a reasonable time afterwards. But it goes on to say, basically, it refers to the voluntary aspect versus the non-compliant aspect. They are going to be giving waivers for the RFID chip, so people don't have to get them. And I know you and I won't be one of those people receiving waivers. But
Folks,
this states in this bill.
Look, you're not part of this club. As George Carlin had said, and I used to think he was crass, and I thought Carlin was nuts. But as he said, there's a big club, and we are not in it. And this club that's going to get the pass on these RFID chips or this compulsory system, hey,
yeah,
it's not us.
Section 302 of the Pandemic and All Hazards Preparedness Reauthorization Act says revises the Secretary's authority to allow the use of an was it 302? What was I looking at? As the use of an unapproved medical product or the unapproved use of an approved product, it authorizes the Secretary to make a declaration that the circumstances exist justifying the authorization and the determination of a general threat, significant potential for public health emergency. So basically, they can use any excuse they want to implement this, and they are given the authority to circumvent any existing law, or obstacle, or whatever I read in a little bit earlier, to implement this. And this reauthorizes appropriations for FY 2014 through 2018, a program to improve public health alert communications and surveillance, and public health situational awareness, meaning real-time data gathering from these devices, includes poison control centers in the integrated system and surveillance networks. Well, isn't that nice? But yeah, they want to make sure, and they define biosurveillance. I don't know if I said this already, but this is gathering real-time biological data from humans and zoonotic disease activity that threatens humans or animals' health in order to achieve an early warning and identification of such health threats. But if you read other of these internment and resettlement operations, if you read the internment and resettlement operations states in there that they will give you a new social security number, a new identification number that will be 16 digits. I don't find that to be a coincidence.
No, of course not. If you were in need of medical care, whether it be an acute situation or a chronic situation, at what point do you acquiesce and say, okay, I submit to this system? Or will there be a black market in existence? How soon is this going to take place? Well, the timing of this we don't know, but we do know it's in the final stages according to these reference manuals and these instructional manuals and this pseudo legislation. These operational tactics, we know it's going to be soon. Are you going to be able to? Are you going to take part in this? Will this be part of this mark of the beast system? Is this conspiracy talk? No, of course not. It's Joe's reading right from the right, and this is a branch of the Affordable Health Care Act. You wonder what's in the 20,000 plus pages. Well, you're hearing it here, okay? And there's going to be a necessary compliance. Those who don't comply won't get treatment. Those who don't get treatment, obviously, will either die, or they'll have to go underground, so to speak. This is happening. Just take what is being said here and apply it to whatever. Apply it to religion. Apply it to finances. Apply it to whatever it might be. This is what's taking place today.
Yeah, and I apologize for not having the information together real tight with this, because I was reading it right before, like 5 minutes before we went on the show. But scrolling down here into the bill, it goes on to say that this is also the Biometric Defense Medical Countermeasure Development Association. It authorizes the Secretary to support the innovation of a biodefense medical,
And a lot of this is coming through the United Nations as well. I mean, when I say coming through the United Nations, there's an administration process of which the United Nations is a part of. And speaking of the United Nations, just to switch gears, cover as much as important information as possible. This week, John Kerry, the Secretary of State, boy, I never thought I'd be saying those words.
Back the UN small arms treaty.
Yeah. He actually announced the United States support for the United Nations Small Arms, or United Nations Arms Trade Treaty, a final version of which is currently being hammered out right now in New York in the session that'll end on the 28th of this month. Controversial, ATT? Oh, you betcha. It's a means of getting a handle on international arms trade valued at $60 billion a year. That's the stated purpose, of course, is to keep illicit weapons out of the hands of terrorists, insurgent fighters, and organized crime at an international level. It's okay with Benghazi It's okay there, and it's okay with Fast and Furious, but it's not okay in the streets of America. America's the last bastion, and this is directed at America. And you've got these traitorous sellouts like Kerry and Clinton and Obama and every single solitary member of Congress who has not stood up against this arms trade treaty and said, no, we're not going to adhere to this. We're not going to sign it. Don't even think about siding with this. They're traitors to the Constitution, to the oath that they took, every single solitary one. We have there's a paper by the United Nations Coordinating Actions on Small Arms. It's called CASA for short. Says that arms may have been, and I like this phrase, may have been misused by lawful owners, and that the arms trade therefore be regulated in ways that would minimize the misuse of legally owned weapons. What does that say? It says that you own a legal weapon, they're interested. They're coming after you.
Remember we played that clip of the New Jersey governor, the mayor of Newark, New Jersey, offering cash for people to call in.
That's New York. That was New York.
New York.
Yeah.
The mayor of New Jersey was offering gift cards and money for a buyback program.
Right. And yeah, correct. You're right. That was locally in New Jersey, and then of course you've got the New York Safe Act. Turn in a neighbor $500. Hey, have a great day.
Yeah, and I apologize for being out of the conversation a little bit. I'm reading through these things because I'm finding new information as I go along, but I'll stop doing that. We're going to be taking calls during the third hour, so if you want to jump on board on hold, 661-244-9839 is the number. Other news that we missed this week hitting is one, national security letters deemed unconstitutional. I don't know if you saw this, but a United States federal judge declared that the super secret national security letters that let the government garner so much information on Americans without their consent are unconstitutional. The FBI has issued hundreds of thousands of NLS, national security letters, to private businesses, not only private businesses, but international organizations, in order to obtain sensitive information on clients without waiting for a warrant or a subpoena. Unlike those options, though the national security letters involve next to no oversight, instead, all that is required is a special agent in charge signs off and says the information is relevant to an investigation.
Hey, this is detention and deprivation of the individuals without judicial process, without due process. This, once again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier about the signpost to slavery.
But the real question is, just because it's deemed unconstitutional, is it going to stop? And the answer is no. And let me read you part of an op-ed. We're from the government, and we are here to learn everything about you. Rage over waste and injustice of agents sent by the federal government to bang on doors of law-abiding citizens to ask probing, creepy questions is normally something that bubbles up every 10 years. But ever since the government became a cancerous bug, the outrage is now an annual occurrence. The first census was in 1790, asked a minimum question establishing congressional districts of equal proportions. All it asks is how many people are in your house. 223 years since, the census has spawned an entire federal bureaucracy with tentacles reaching into the farthest hidden cracks of this country and darkly invasive questions that are unnecessary at best. So drunk on the power and addicted to all the intimate, private information of law-abiding citizens, the government could no longer get its fix every 10 years, as required by the Constitution, to maintain congressional districts of equal populations. So these sicko data voyeurs turned it into a never-ending annual habit, forever snooping, demanding, collecting, and amassing data.
Well, okay, here's the deal with what you just said and what we just talked about here for the last hour or two. You know, ladies and gentlemen, each one of you listening to this program tonight, you're in this fight against this new world order, these elite, these royalty, members of royalty, and I use that term purposely, deliberately. You're in this fight whether you want to be in this fight or not. Unless you are part of it, unless you are royalty or an insider, you are a victim. You will be subjugated to the laws, whether it be the monetary laws or the medical laws or the very confining laws of your bank account. You know, it doesn't matter if you've got $1 million or $1 billion, or if you got $5 to your name. You have a tremendous amount at stake here, ladies and gentlemen. The insiders, the royalty, the elite, they're counting on all of us to be too preoccupied with our own problems or too lazy to fight back. We've got our heads in our computer screens and our iPads and our iPhones and games, and we're too lazy with the chain. Or in the meantime, the chains of slavery are being fastened on us. Look, these people are counting on the mass media to con us, to paint that picture and hide that picture in the picture. They're counting on us, or they're counting on them to frighten you, ridicule you for daring to mention eligibility, daring to mention the bullet purchases, the ammunition purchases, to be more precise. They want to ridicule you out of your savings, out of your freedoms, and most of all, they're counting on your thinking that you can escape by not taking part in opposing their takeover, thinking that, hey, I'll just be a part of it. There will be a seat at the table for me. They are counting on you. They are counting on you who recognize the conspiracy, becoming so involved with watching all the moves that you are mesmerized and paralyzed as opposed to acting. And we can't do that either. Folks, you're listening to the Hagmann Report on this, the 21st day of March 2013.
If you are stumped, you don't know what kind of gift to give to a friend or a loved one, I'm telling you, you must go to 4physics.com. That's the numeral 4, PHYSICS.com. This is your one-stop shopping palace. That's the only way I can put it. I could spend easily an hour on this website. Innovative, fun, educational. There are games, books, weather instruments, unique time-telling devices, jewelry, optical devices, laboratory equipment. Let me give you an example. We all know we can tell time with a sundial. You've seen those advertised. Did you know that you could tell time by the stars? At 4physics.com, you can buy a horologium nocturnum. This was a navigational device used in the 15th century by navigators at night to tell time by the stars. It's beautifully crafted in the shape of a pendant made of bronze and pewter or gold and silver. Absolutely a stunning gift. I would be proud to give it to anyone. You must go to 4physics.com. Even if you're not stumped, that's 4physics. That's the numeral 4, PHYSICS.com. It's your one-stop shopping palace. Any problems that you have, I don't know what to get Grandpa, I don't know what to get my loved one, that's unique, you will find it at 4physics.com. Please take my word for it. Go to the website, but give yourself a lot of time because you're not going to want to leave. 4physics.com.
Survival of the fittest. In any and all situations, survival is your number one priority. That requires being tough and thinking smart. And the folks at Freeze Dry Guy are going to help you do just that. They have a long-range patrol ration entrees, what they call the Brick Pack. When you're in survival mode, it is absolutely the best item for your survival pack or bug-out bag. You can go farther, faster, and carry more food with the LRP cold weather ration entrees. Not only do these long-lasting, durable entrees help sustain you or your family through the harshest environment or situation, they are by far the most delicious of their kind. No contest. With a variety of tasty entrees, you can't beat the LRP Brick Packs. Let Freeze Dry Guy help you in your survival situations. Go to freezedryguy.com. That's freezedryguy.com. Or call 866-404-3663. That's 866-404-FOOD.
You better wake up fast and listen to this, America. The Obama campaign has launched attack squads disguised as truth teams dedicated to intimidating and silencing all political dissent carried over the internet that criticizes the Marxist Obama. Truth squads specifically focused on covering up Obama's endless trail of lies, corruption, and subversion, and using the Gestapo power of our own government to police and censor the internet and shut down websites that dare to carry the real truth about Obama's Marxist coup. Remember the names of these Gestapo-style agencies that work right there in your neighborhood. KeepingHisWord.com, KeepingGOPHonest.com, and AttackWatch.com. KGB, SS, and Gestapo-style police-state gangster organizations at work to silence the important voices of patriot dissent, some of which have already been shut down by Obama's orders. Adolf Hitler would have been proud. We're the 21st century Tea Party patriots.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to direct you to a great couple, Carl and Lori Granlund of Granlund Firearms of British Columbia. They're our sponsors this hour, this show actually, and they are located at GranlundFirearms.com. If you go to our home site, HomelandSecurityUS.com, that's HomelandSecurityUS.com, click on the banner on the right. It'll take you right to their home base. They've got a complete gun list posted there, long rifles. And by the way, if you live in the United States, it's my understanding, I've talked to a couple of people who have ordered guns from Granlund who in the United States, and if you do it legally through a federal firearms license dealer, you can get and I'll tell you what, they've got a good inventory. They've got great prices, very competitive prices. Carl's book about cougar hunting in Vancouver, it's a tremendous book that you can pick that up for under $30, as well as a t-shirt, survival equipment, everything you need. That's GranlundFirearms.com, GranlundFirearms.com. While you're at the website, sign the guest book and tell them you heard about them on the Hagmann and Hagmann reports.
You want answers? I'll take up his title. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
Yeah. Welcome back, folks, to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Open mic time. You're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report live on this 21st day of March 2013. I'm talking while I still can. Anyway, it was just pointed out to me by a very special friend, too, that during the break that, Joe was talking about the healthcare law. And we were talking about the healthcare law. And we were talking about very confiscatory policies. It's tax season, right? Well, look. What we're seeing right now, especially with the healthcare law is based on the IRS code. In fact, the people who wrote the healthcare law, the Affordable Healthcare Law, were experts at the IRS. Why do you think there's 20,000 pages? It's because, well, what better way to hide things than to just make someone read 20,000 pages of government legalese? And you see, this is what it's all about. Go back to the IRS, the establishment of the IRS. What was that all about? It was about centralizing the authority, centralization, and also, sure, it was about taxation, but it was about centralization, centralizing the information, having a central repository. So is healthcare. That's what it's about. So it's ultimately about control as much as it is about anything else, and certainly it's less about healthcare, it's about control. And when you look at it, Who are the enforcers of the health care bill? The IRS. What's the enforcement arm of the health care law? The IRS. What are the penalties? What did Justice Roberts say in his court ruling that overturned or was the majority opinion for the Supreme Court? Traitor to the Constitution as he is. What did it, oh, and by the way, I just couldn't believe some conservative pundits out there saying, "Oh, what a brilliant move by Roberts." Are you serious? It's all about control. It's all about centralization, folks. We are in our third hour of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Doug Hagmann here with one of my co-hosts, my son and investigator Joe Hagmann, and we have a lot more to get into for the rest of this hour. And I'll just throw it back to Joe.
Including your phone calls, 661-244-9839. This is something we didn't get a chance to hit on. Michael Moore was on Piers Morgan on Tuesday. And this is a 2-minute audio clip of what was discussed.
This is intellectual fodder.
Because the assault, we didn't even talk about this. The assault weapons ban was killed in the Senate by Harry Reid. Now listen to this clip.
You know, Wayne says there's 100 million Americans that own a gun. Well, there's 200 million that don't.
But here's the thing.
We're the majority.
Right. The majority, though, is being outshouted, outgunned, you might say, quite literally, by the NRA. The minority are having the biggest voice in this debate, and they are winning the argument. Right. You cannot look at what happened today with what Harry Reid has done and not say he's been cowed by the NRA.
People watching the show right now can get out their iPhone or BlackBerry, their laptop, and send an email right now to Harry Reid, or do it after the show. But they won't do anything if people don't stand up and say something, especially the Democrats. So this is going to require people are actually not just going to be able to sit back on the couch tonight and go, oh, geez, that Harry Reid, you know, I guess we didn't have the 60 votes. Put the Republicans on the spot. Make them vote on this.
You know, when I saw...
Make them stand up and filibuster if that's what they're going to threaten to do.
When I saw Senator Portman doing a complete U-turn about gay rights and gay marriage because his own son had come out to him, and I totally respected him for doing it, and that's fine. But it did cross my mind how many of these senators who, in my view, probably do think there should be an assault weapons ban, probably do think there should be universal background checks, but they have decided to go against their principle to protect their political seats. How many would change if one of their kids had been in that Sandy Hook school and gone through a Portman-like experience? In other words, it was right home to them and their families.
Well, I think we all know the answer to that question. If a man with an assault weapon goes into the school where Harry Reid's grandchildren go to school tomorrow and kills his grandchildren, what would he stand in front of that microphone at 5 o'clock and say, I know how Diane, you know, had to witness the mayor getting murdered, but my grandchildren just got killed today, but, you know, we can't get it passed because we just don't have the votes. Would he do that really? I don't think so.
More hate, death rhetoric from these gun control advocates.
Now take a human being like Michael Moore and stand him next to Katie Worthman. Does that name ring a bell? I've mentioned her on this program before. Katie Worthman, well, she was born in Austria. She lived there for several years under Hitler's regime, and after World War II, she also lived 3 years under Soviet communist occupation. So she has the bona fides, the street creds to talk about gun control, and she's got this acute awareness of how the media thugs, the Hollywood elite, these poor human beings like Michael Moore and Piers Morgan, how they distort things and how this actually facilitates tyranny coming into power. Remember, Katie Worthman, look her up, because she says not only that the media is wrong about how Hitler came to power, because it's all revisionist history. Don't you forget about this. It's all revisionist history. Although you talk about that in the halls of any Ivy League college, whether it's Yale or Harvard, you will be ostracized. The revisionist history. It's the media's wrong about how Hitler came to power. But she says that in the beginning, Hitler didn't look like or even talk like a monster at all. He talked like an American politician. Those are Katie Worthman's words. She says that the story of Hitler overthrowing governments and people in order to come to power just simply isn't true. But rather, the Austrian people elected Hitler with 98% of the vote at the ballot box. Do you think there was any voter fraud going on there? Yeah, well, okay. She states that the Austrian people had guns, but the government began to say that they were dangerous. So the Austrian government, under the reign of Hitler, began to implement gun registration. I didn't say confiscation. I didn't say gun laws. I said gun registration. And then she said this was followed by turning in their weapons to the police station in order to cut down on crime. And oh, by the way, if the gun owners didn't, they would be punished. And in the end, it was capital punishment. She also states that the dictatorship, it didn't start overnight. It didn't happen overnight. It took 5 years, incrementally, little by little, to escalate into that. And then she said, when the people fear the government, that's tyranny. But when the government fears the people, that's liberty. You know, look, she says this as a Nazi survivor and as a survivor of communism. She says, keep your guns, keep your guns. Oh, and buy more guns. You think that we should listen to Katie Worthman? I do. Yeah, she's got the street creds to give us advice on gun ownership. So how better to learn from history than to hear someone directly who had lived it? I don't think there's any better way to do that.
No, and you're right. And then we're going to go to the phones, 661-244-9839. We're going to go to area code 914 and then 303-914. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hey, is this, am I on?
That's you. You are live.
All right. How you doing, guys? This is Jim from Pennsylvania, Williamsport.
Hey, Jim from Williamsport.
I listened to you guys, Joe and there, Doug. I enjoy listening to you. I feel like for a long time I'm kind of like one of them voices shouting from the mountain, and I really appreciate what you guys are doing. And you know, I I don't have really much to add to what you guys have already gone in a great depth, but I kind of wanted to share a little testimony or a little story, if I might.
Sure.
I'm originally from Westchester County, New York. I've been a part of a group of men and women that we consider ourselves gatekeepers. And we've held down some portal gates in the city of Manhattan and in the boroughs for years, getting to know the land, getting to know the history behind the obelisk. It's in Central Park and a lot of ley lines and things like that, and going through the process. And about a year and a half ago, I was woken up in the morning, and I have that relationship that I do hear very clearly from the Holy Spirit, and I rely faithfully daily on His leading. And woke up, and just right out of that sleep, the Holy Spirit said to me very clearly, He said, humanity. He said, I'll return when humans no longer allow humanity to exist. And 2 weeks later, I had a dream about moving to Pennsylvania. And 2 days later, I had been working for a company, and I had left, and I had made friends with people in that company. And I had somebody that I had made a friendship with call me up 2 days after I had that dream, asked me if I'd be interested in taking a position in Pennsylvania. And I knew that was the leading. I kind of laid that gauntlet out before the Lord, and I never had the understanding or the desire to run or to leave, so it was never an issue of fear. It was something that I believe that God was doing, is preparing that remnant. And you guys have spoken about quite a few times, and I've been listening to you for a while. Never been able to get on and haven't had the time, but I wanted to share that real quick with you guys. that God is preparing those that can hear His voice. And I got to tell you, I don't know if Steve's listening, but I've tried to email him a couple of times. I really enjoy listening to his testimonies and experiences, and a lot of things that he does talk about. I know firsthand, and many of the things that he knows and things that he understands, he knows only by the Holy Spirit, and has had not anybody confirm those things, but he knows the voice of the Holy Ghost. And I enjoy listening to him as well as I do you guys. So I wanted to just, call and confirm that you guys are spot on. From somebody who I go unnamed, and I go, I don't look for any attention or anything, but I just wanted to share with you guys. You guys are right on, and God is using you as a voice to prepare a lot of people to make preparation for what is coming. And there's things that I see and things that I hear and things that I know I don't really share. I do what I do for the Lord in quiet. And I close portals and I close gates and I pull down ruling authorities, and I try to do whatever God has given me the anointing and the ability to do. So I just wanted to thank you guys for that, and it's a pleasure listening to you guys and sharing in that fellowship and hearing as God is preparing others.
Well, God bless you. Thank you for that testimony, and certainly we'll pass that along to Steve and yeah, Joe. It's what a call. I mean, what thank you for
the uplifting words. It's very it does us a lot of good. I mean, we don't need to hear any boasting about our show or our information. All the glory goes to the Lord, and He's the one who set this up. We had never planned to do this, and it really is uplifting, and it's special when people.
As Steve Quill told me one time, the Lord makes creates better friends for us than we could ever create for ourselves, and that goes for every other aspect of our lives. And I think that's why we're here, and that's why, caller, you're doing what you've been doing what you've been doing, and we do this because we've been called to do it. And I think a lot of listeners have been called to play their positions in life and are coming to the realization that, hey, you know what? This is what I need to do. I need to be a leader, and I need to go out and prepare, and help others prepare, and to talk with other people too. So you're playing that position, and that's a very important thing to do. And God bless you for that.
Yeah, amen. Thank you. Just one more thing, if I could. If everybody's listening, there are instruments and tools and giftings that we all have. Many of us don't know them because there are not people in our lives to bring those giftings to our understanding or our knowledge. So we go through life really never having anybody who's covering us who has a greater anointing to teach us of these things. But I will share there's 3 gifts, there's 3 tools that we all have who love the Lord. We can use to fight every day in the Spirit and take dominion. One is praying, the other is fasting, and the other is giving and supporting to those giftings and those anointings that are over us. So all you people that are listening, if you don't pray faithfully and you don't fast, give to where you're getting the anointing. Give to where you're getting the knowledge. Give to where you're getting the understanding. If you are getting fed from this channel, give and support the ministry. It doesn't matter. Give and support the ministry. Do those 3 things, and you'll see your spiritual lives increase tremendously. And that's it.
Wow.
God bless you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, my friend. Interesting. We do our best with what we have, and we believe we are good stewards with what we have and what we're provided with. We're very fortunate, and every waking moment, every breathing moment that we have, we will be there and we're looking for other avenues, when things do. And I'm sure, like I said yesterday too, and Joe and I were talking about this, we don't know how many shows we have left. I'm sure it's a finite number of shows, at least in this venue, on this platform. Because do you think that as things happen and progress with rapid acceleration, that we are going to be allowed to continue in this form? Perhaps not. Maybe for a while. I don't know. We don't know this. But we are attempting to to find other outlets and avenues and shore them up where we can.
Shortwave. Yeah.
Shortwave, for example, that's one, and other avenues to keep in contact with those thirsty for and hungry for the information as things go bad.
Thank you for your call, sir. You have a great night, and God bless.
Thank you. God bless you guys, too. Keep up the good work.
All right, man.
And we're going to go to area code 303 next, then 313.
Yeah, we don't screen our calls. I'm sorry, I jumped right in there. Go ahead, Joe.
No problem. 303, you're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
O Lord, how excellent is thy name in all the earth, who has set thy glory above the heavens. I really appreciate you guys' show because you're firmly grounded. And like you just said, you don't screen calls. You have a lot of diverse callers. And in Jesus' name, I want to bless all that is listening, everybody that's just tuning into the show for the first time. Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Joe.
Well, thank you.
And I really love the way you come on the call there with a real either spiritual or Bible verse. It's very interesting. And
well, I think it's needed, because what are we doing this for, really? I mean, is it for our earthly comforts? No, it's for our eternal salvation. And I mean, that's what it's all about. And because this life will end, for all of us will end.
Yeah.
And none of us are going to get out of this alive.
At least it'll end on this planet.
Right, exactly. So from there, this is why we're doing this. Because, and I was told, again, by a good friend that we fight, we put up a fight, occupy until we can't do it anymore. And as we go through these various battles and there are benefits, there are rewards on the other side of each battle that we go through, and it's that heavenly spiritual part that we really is the. And who talks about this on air? Very few talk about this on air, but that's what we're in this for.
We've actually spoke about that in the past. I mean, look at all the different freedom radio out there. Nobody wants to talk about Yeshua HaMashiach. They don't want to offend the non-believers they have in their audience. They don't want their income stream to dry up. The Lord provides. Like you guys have mentioned, I'm pretty sure you didn't expect to be doing this. Praise the Lord. I didn't expect a lot of things, but I glorify His name, Yahweh, and it's beautiful what you guys are doing because I pass the show's information on, and your advertisers, it's worked out well for my family. And again, you guys are doing God's work, and it's not going to be easy until the end. I'm prepared to lose my life for Christ, professing the name of Jesus, and there'd be nothing more I could do for the one who sacrificed for me, for all of us.
Oh, amen to that. I'll tell you. Wow. Well, thank you so much for your call. God bless you, and thanks for being a very strong voice in the wilderness. You are much appreciated, and thanks for listening. And
have a blessed night, everybody.
You too.
God bless you. Have a good night.
Thank you, guys.
Some great calls.
Yes.
Moving along, area code 313. We're coming to you next. You are live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hi, this is Barb. How are you?
Very well.
Yeah. Good. I like that last caller. That was really nice. Just a couple things. Today, as I was driving home, I'm here in Dearborn, Michigan, and I did see a soldier just standing observing a city park. I don't know what he was doing, but he was there. I found it odd. Also, yesterday I was watching Obama with President Perez live on CNN, And after their speech, when they were walking out, they were greeted by a line of children waving Israeli and American flags, singing Hallelujah. Now, I found that disturbing. I didn't like that.
No,
Because of the timing, and I felt it was maybe mocking what Jesus did the week before Passover when he entered the city. But that's my opinion. I'd be interested to know how other people take that. I can't find the clip. I've been looking for it, but I just cannot find it. I watched it live on CNN.
Perhaps it will show up on the internet, on YouTube, or some other location. What do you think?
Maybe. I'm not real tech savvy, so I'm hoping somebody will find it. I've looked and looked. I can't find it.
Well, you know, I mean, things are oftentimes things are not as they always appear, and you know, one thing that about Obama's presence in Israel, and this is pointed out to us, his arrival was on the day that historically in history, not anymore, but in history, the Israelites would select a lamb for slaughter, and you know, you have to look at these coincidences. Well, are they coincidences, or has this been planned out? Is there something being telegraphed here? You know, and things are not always what they seem. In fact, is a lot lot weirder than fiction. You know, could it be that we're seeing something not only at a spiritual level, but at a mechanical elite level of this oligarchy, this global oligarchy, being ready to sacrifice Obama in the name, perhaps, of gun control or in the name of some other cause? What would polarize the American people more than an event like that or something like that? You know, again, this is just talk. This is just intellectual discourse. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But there just seems to
didn't go exactly where yours just did. I found it more of like mocking Jesus entering Jerusalem when they were singing Hosanna. That's how I took it, and I didn't like it.
Well, no, and I agree with you, and that's not to say that both situations are exclusive to each other. In fact, they both can play a part, and I think you're right. But if people would sit back and ask themselves, why did Obama? What was Obama's purpose to visit Israel at this time, at this hour, on this day, or during this period? What was his purpose? Can anyone tell me what his purpose for visiting? If he's not hammering out or attempting to facilitate peace in the Middle East, what was his purpose for going?
Yeah, and why did he announce it?
I found the timing. Yeah, I found the timing significant.
Yeah, I did too, and Joe,
yeah, no, he announced it. You know, when he was during his reelection campaign, that if he was reelected, he would go to Israel, which I found very strange to hear. You know, what would that matter? Oh, if you reelect me, I'll go to Israel. When the U.S.
trip, right?
Yeah, and okay. You know, the U.S. and Israel have had a. You know, they're they're the closest allies, pretty much. They're our closest allies, I would say. And even under Bush,
for the first time in 5 years, that's a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, anyway, that's all.
You're
I
muted.
just wanted to share those things with you, and you know, people can interpret that any way they like. Things are pretty quiet here in Dearborn, as far as I can tell.
Well, let's hope they stay that way. And as far as that soldier checking out that park, I don't know. But yeah, Dearborn is becoming
that disturbed me. I have noticed an increased police presence in general, especially around the Jewish New Year, things like that. But I think that's to be expected. And but I stay pretty close to home right now, and so. But I noticed that today, and I thought, well, I'll share that and see. Just toss it out there. People can interpret that any way they want.
Well, all right. We appreciate the information and the update. We're always keeping a close eye on the Dearborn, Detroit area, because that, of course, is a huge Islamic enclave. Perhaps, it's incredible. You just stay safe, and God bless you, caller. Thank you so much for your call.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, bye. You know what, Joe? It's Dearborn is wow. It's what a different city that is, where you can be arrested for even handing out Christian literature in amongst the Islamic Muslim carnivals.
Yeah, weren't people stoned or something happened there?
No, I don't think they were stoned.
I would look into that. I would look into that because I think they were. There was somebody that was stoned. I could be wrong.
Hookah or use or whatever those things are called.
And about a month ago, there was the beheadings in New Jersey. I don't know if you heard about that.
Yeah, we're seeing an increase, of course, in the implementation of Sharia law, and I say
The
implementation.
Muslim patrol. Sorry,
Yeah, it's no.
Throw that in there.
Yeah, people make fun of it, but what are we seeing? What's the best way to degrade our current judicial system, aside from how it's been degraded? Really, what's our defense against unconstitutional acts, or what's our defense against our last line of defense against tyranny? It's our judicial system, and that's been corrupted. Look at Holder.
No, I wouldn't say it's our judicial system. The last line of defense is us.
Well, of course,
as far as the checks and balances go, of the government.
Yeah, I mean, we've got dictatorial oligarchies, in states and in the judiciary, but it's just incredible how things are going. I just can't believe it. I just want to real quick address this. An email from Jackie. Saying that she listens to our program every night, and thanks much. And Jackie, thank you for listening. She writes, "My question is this: I have so much debt, I'll never be able to pay off the debt before the stuff happens. What will happen since I can't possibly pay it all off anytime soon?" Well, you know what, Joe? I've had questions about this before. And Jackie, I'll tell you something. We're going to address this with Stephen, his financial insider, tomorrow night, because there are a lot of people in your position, including, may I say, me. I mean, you got a mortgage, you got kids, you put through, you help through school, and you got, pretty soon you find yourself, pretty old with a lot of debt. So what do you do with one or two mortgages? Well, and thinking that you're not going to be able to pay everything off before it all collapses. Man, that's a good question. You know what? And I'm not sure we're qualified to answer it, except to say that, if you think about it, you may be in a better position than people that have money in their 401ks and are too stubborn. I don't know what other word to use to take it out. We'll say, it can't happen here. My money is safe. The FDIC is going to cover it. Well, they're probably in a heck of a lot worse position than you are. I would say that I would be much. I would probably prefer your situation than the. Well, I don't know if I'd prefer it. I would. This is something we'll discuss with Stephen. And
yeah, it's hard to everybody is in a unique situation as far as their dependence, how many people depend on them or will depend on them if something happens, their income, there's a whole bunch of things that makes each situation
much different.
Unique.
Yeah, and yes. So Jackie, be sure to listen tomorrow night. It's not that we're trying to put you off. It's just the fact that we want to get you the best information possible. And I'm sure there are other people out there that have their own ideas, but really, is your debt, for example, a mortgage or mortgages? And Lord, I know that feeling. I don't know. We'll talk tomorrow about this, and we'll do our best to answer your question.
Yeah, I'm looking here. Tomorrow or today, they simulated an earthquake drill in Los Angeles, a 7.8. I thought
Well, why
that.
not like an 8.0? Well, I mean, okay, so a simulation of 7.8. What
I
is?
just find it weird because
Huh?
there's been a lot of talk about the potential earthquake. Even that Department of Homeland Security document we were looking at, the GeoConops, the geospatial concept of operations from the Department of Homeland Security, in their table of contents, 5.2, section 5.2 is the New Madrid earthquake scenario, and they talk about modeled earthquake impacts from that event and PPD8 mission area support. They also talk about a earthquake in on the western part of the United States, and they go into a lot of other scenarios. They call these from anything from terrorist attacks to water contamination. But the New Madrid was one of the first things that stuck out to me in that in this document. And thinking of what Stan Deyo has, he has these alerts on the New Madrid. There was a 3.1 earthquake in Oklahoma, right before the show started. There's been some minor activity along in California today. I hope there's no earthquake, no huge earthquake, but people are having dreams and visions and having this feeling that something bad is going to happen like this. I saw something on the internet where somebody had a dream of two 8.0s happening simultaneously, one in northern part of the U.S. off the coast and one in the southern part off the west coast. I don't know how to explain it. If people are having an increase of these dreams, if people are having an increase of these feelings, we see some seismic activity, but nothing substantial. They are running drills, which is always a red flag. But, I hope that something like this will never happen.
One thing I want to say too about this, and I never believed this in the past. I never thought that this was true, but there are weapons out there that actually can. I don't know if create, cause. I'm not sure what the word would be, but it can trigger earthquakes. Maybe that's the word.
Yeah.
Can you believe that, folks? Okay. I mean, is that, to me, that's really hard to believe. The fact that somebody would create a weapon like that, maybe it was a weapon for war. I don't know. But for crying out loud, they exist. I don't know. Again, truth is much stranger than fiction. So who knows? But visit standeo.com. His earthquake likelihood map. I'm not sure what he calls it. Likelihood
I was looking
of
for
earthquakes.
it before the show, and I couldn't find the likely earthquakes.
It's on his website to the right. You'll see it. It's standeo.com. It's standeyo.com. And of course, good friends of ours, Stan and Holly Deo, and Holly has written the Dare to Prepare book. If you want an encyclopedia about preparations, holy cow, that covers everything. I don't think there's anything left untouched. But standeo.com's got the earthquake likelihood map, and he bases that. And he was on the show a week ago, talking about using the water temperatures and the surface water, the underwater temperatures of the oceans. So it's in the coastal areas where his prediction or predictability of earthquakes lie over, and he gives you like a forecast for an earthquake forecast map for the next 7 to 10 days. It's really kind of an interesting thing to watch, and I got to tell you, he's been right on the money many times.
There were 9 people killed by hail in China today, too.
Well, hail, folks. I mean, really, think about that. Can you imagine
sinkholes swallowing people alive?
Wow,
hailstones dropping down, killing people. You have meteors dropping from the sky. You have things like the lightning hitting the Vatican after the Pope resigns, first time in 600 years a sitting Pope resigns. You have Obama going to Israel for the first time. All these things are happening. Mass fish and bird and animal die-offs, changes in the weather and the patterns of weather, changes in the jet stream. And that's one thing we really have to hit on soon is the jet stream, because it's one area that, I'm not a scientist at all.
Well, thank goodness, but
no, but seriously, the jet stream, because of the oil spill, was altered, and that That's at least my understanding. But from whatever reason,
Yeah.
it's different, and there's a big implication and big problems that will stem from this. And
I
I think we're
really
starting to
think.
see 'em.
I'm troubled by the BP oil spill. I've got to tell you, I've been looking at that. After it happened, I was looking at it, and I've been looking at that. There's just something not right with the BP oil spill, especially now since no one is talking about it. Very few are talking about it. Very few are talking about the core exit that was used. I mean, it's all like it never happened. Remember Katrina? Now, I don't want to go with Republican, Democrat, but remember during Katrina, there was this. That's all you heard for a long time. But how, in comparison, do we hear about the BP oil spill for that length of a time? Do we hear about, for example, Fukushima? All of these disasters, and I'm not ascribing it to a Republican or Democratic type media, but I am saying that a lot of what is taking place, a lot of the truth is being covered up because of a larger agenda. And if you look at the two-party system we have right now, actually it's a one-party system. You've got everything moved so far to the left that the very right of the political spectrum, they're Fabian socialists from the word go. So it's a single party system, and this began to develop by these oligarchs under one can argue under Bush, but certainly under Bush Senior. This is when it really took off with a fervor. Don't forget his 9/11, 1990 New World Order speech. This is when it began to take off, and people. And what gets me is in the face of the evidence. To avoid the marginalization and the being ostracized and the ridicule, people won't talk about this, and we have to talk about it. We have to have an intelligent, honest conversation about what's really taking place in the world. Without this intelligent conversation, we're not going to get to the truth. And sometimes an intelligent conversation and an honest conversation, sometimes it gets really uncomfortable. It takes you to places that you really don't, oh man, really you want to talk about this? Is this what, but you know what? You have to. It's just like anything else that's unpleasant in your life, your debt situation or your family situation or your whatever it might be. The more uncomfortable it is, the more important it is for you to talk about it.
Yeah, that's so true. We're going to go back to the phones, area code 804. We're coming to you. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hello, is this me?
That's you.
Hi, Doug and Joe. Marianne here.
Marianne.
I wanted to know, Doug, can I pray for you for your tooth thing, and also for Gunslinger, who's got it's worse than the tooth. It's got an infection down into the bone and the jaw.
Yeah.
Can I pray for you guys?
Oh, please, Marianne. We'd love it, sure.
Okay. Well, Lord, I just lift up Doug and Gunslinger to you and ask that you protect both of these dear men from infection, that they would be healed quickly and easily. And, Lord, with Doug, protection with any anesthesia, with every process involved, that everything that needs to be done at the dentist will be done right, and they won't do anything they shouldn't, and they'll do everything that they should, Lord, and just your hand of protection over everything, even the transportation, his recovery at home, every detail of it, Lord, that he'll get the rest that he needs, and while he's doing it, he'll have precious time with you and precious time with his family, that it'll all be very fruitful, Lord. We know that you make all things work together for good for those who love you and are called according to your purposes, Lord. And we thank you for these dear men, and ask, Lord, for your blessings on them and on their families and all those who are close to their hearts, for your blessing, your guidance, your wisdom, and your protection. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Marianne and Gunslinger. Right there with you, my friend. And you got to get that taken care of. You're in worse shape than I am. I got to tell you. So. But Marianne, I want to thank you, and I just want to say this: Marianne's just a great friend, a great supporter of the Hagmann Report, and she's just such a solid Christian. I've never really met a more solid, well-grounded person. Somebody we could turn to when we have questions about certain things, and always on the right path, always on the. I mean, boy, you ask her a question and she's got the answer, and I want to thank you so much for being a part of our lives, because you are a part of our lives, and I want to wish you too, and everybody in the chat room join me in wishing Marianne a happy belated birthday. It was last week, but
Yeah,
thank you so
I'm
much
officially an old lady now. I'm 70.
Yeah, you're a youngster. Yeah, you're a young 70, but
I feel like I'll be 30 in a couple days, and it's
Yeah,
like
you
it's
young
creeping up.
whippersnappers. You young whippersnappers, you still got milk behind your ears.
Oh yeah, and at 30 years old, I can't believe it. Of course, it's been a rough 30 years, folks.
Yeah.
But Marianne,
That's a
God bless you.
milestone, too. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Me
is.
too.
Oh, God bless you.
And
Thanks
thanks
so
so
much.
much for all you're doing.
Oh, thank you. We'll talk
Bye-bye.
soon. All right. Bye bye.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Marianne.
bye-bye.
Have a good night.
Yeah, she's such a
You
sweet
too.
lady. I just love Marianne. She's a great lady. She's the rock of Gibraltar when it comes to faith, and that's really important, and especially in these times.
We're gonna go to another call. 305. We're coming to you. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hi.
Hi.
You there?
We're here.
Hi. Well,
Hi.
as usual, there's many thoughts that went through my mind, but I'll start with this one. We right now have John Kerry as supporting the UN Small Arms Treaty. John Kerry, CFR, Bonesman, I think he's a Knight of Malta, and it's like Nathan Leal said, it's going to come in waves. Now, I was thinking that back after the Civil War, we were kind of sold out, and the United States in D.C. became part of the corporation that runs out of London, the City of London, as the military arm of the triune of the corporation that runs out of there, being D.C. being the military force, London being the financial force, and Rome being the spiritual force, all connected with the City of London. And I was thinking about how the national parks now all are under UN control, with the signs for the UN are in all of them, including the Everglades National Park.
Yeah, that's the
that I'm
biodiversity
surrounded by.
project. That's the
Okay,
biodiversity
so now
project.
what they're going to do is push through the Small Arms Treaty. They're going to say, oh, well, you know, it doesn't override the Second Amendment, but yeah, it does, because if our corporation in D.C. is under the City of London, that puts us under maritime law, okay? And pushing through these UN treaties puts us under NATO, okay? And that's why you're seeing NATO forces doing drills in this country, multinational drills with other countries and everything. And once they push through the Small Arms Treaty, then the next coming up this summer is the law of the sea. Okay, that's what's coming up next. Kerry also supports that. He backed off on that before the election and said, oh, well, you know, after the election we'll deal with that, after Obama's election. Well, here we are. That's coming up. That's going to be rolling in this summer for that to come through. And then we'll be into after that gets pushed through, that opens up everything under UN, NATO troops then, and they can roll in to the ports, like I said before. And that's what I think. I just think it's a wave that'll come in, and it just marches in with the UN troops. Now, I'm down here in the Keys. We had the drone float up the canal today, and they came down and picked that up. You know, this is all going on, and everybody's just cruising along thinking that, oh, it's not moving that fast. I'm telling you, they're waving this thing over us. The UN's coming in. They've already got their toe in here. Agenda 21's coming in. All these little communities have got all these little projects going, and it's all being funded through the UN, and it all sounds good. You know, they got the school kids going up for UN tours and all of this, and they're working with the youth, and it's just rolling over us, and it's coming in these waves. It's just coming in over us. Now, when they push through the next wave over the summer with the Law of the Sea, then we're into the fall holidays, okay? And we're into the height of hurricane season, okay? And I can just feel. Then we got the comet that comes this fall, the great comet thing that we keep hearing about. So I'm just saying, keep your eyes on this UN thing, because it's rolling over us, okay? And we've got a president that's sitting on the UN. No other president has ever done that because it's unconstitutional. The Constitution's out the window. He's just executive order this, executive order that. They're just laughing at us. It's a big joke up there. You know, these guys all. There's no two parties. They're all up there partying together and laughing at us. You got John McCain and Lindsey Graham, and what a joke. I mean, I'm serious. I don't understand how people don't see this. This is ridiculous. So, anyway.
Well, I want to thank you for your call.
Bumpy ride. Thanks.
Yes.
Bye.
Thanks. You have a good night. And I want to leave you guys with this question. Does it even matter if they pass a small arms treaty? Will that authorize or allow the UN to come in here? They'll do that anyway. They don't need to pass anything. It's already all laid out legislatively. It's law through the NDAA, through all these other executive orders and unconstitutional legislation. They can come in right now. The president could declare a state of emergency across the whole United States, enact martial law across the whole United States because of just the sinkhole in Louisiana, for instance. The Presidential Directive 51, or PDD 51, PPD 51, we were talking about, says the president has that power to declare a national emergency, even if something happens outside of the country.
Well, you know, you're exactly right. And this caller mentioned something that's very important. See, if we can each, every listener of this program, if we can succeed in waking up one person, and that one person can wake up another person, we could have a landslide. We don't have to be filled with hyperbole, and we can just do it methodically. This is what we can use to fight against what's coming, even if we delay it. If we give our children another month, another year, is it worth it? Of course it's worth it.
Because people can be saved in that time.
Exactly. Now she mentioned something about Washington, D.C., and this is what I was getting at yesterday about the duality of the papacy, where the Jesuits, the Jesuit order, once again a 500-year-old order, at the highest levels, a covert operation, a very geopolitical organization, secret military type of thing. Now, I'm not smearing the Jesuit order. I'm talking about the hierarchy here, in the Black Pope, which is the kind of a pejorative term for that order. But okay,
you don't take any oath other than to the Lord,
right?
For one
not
thing.
So, right,
yeah, and that's I have a huge problem with that. And you can, if there is an oath, what's public is debated, as some say it's been debunked. A lot of people don't think so. I think that's the real oath. But see, either way, it doesn't matter what it says. If you take an allegiance to uphold a man before the Lord, you are not right until you get rid of that and repent and come back to the Lord.
Well, exactly. You're exactly 100% correct. But I just want to expand one last thing here at the close of the show. Folks, you have to understand, too, what the caller was saying. Since 1929, the Vatican has been accepted as a sovereign microstate. The Vatican City, with its own head of state and cabinet, the Holy See, and the central bank, the Vatican Bank, the jurisdiction, rules of canon law and admiralty law. There are some 147 international agreements, diplomatic treaties, called concordats or Lateran treaties, which grant the Vatican special national privileges. The reason I'm bringing the Vatican in this is because with the Jesuit order, the papacy, the Vatican City, you have to look also at the military order of Malta, or the Knights.
90 seconds.
Malta. And you have to look at the hierarchy of the Vatican, Jesuit, Masonic, Crusade, and also their connection. Bottom line here, what was Washington D.C. before it became Washington D.C.? What was the name? And we talked about this yesterday. It wasn't Washington D.C. Remember us talking about that?
Yeah.
The
60 seconds.
D.C. District of Columbia Act of 1871 turned D.C. into a municipal corporation. Congress has the supreme authority over the city and the federal district with its own special constitutional amendment. The D.C. is judicially governed by lex fori, as opposed to lex causae, which is a difference in common law, in law. But here's the bottom line. The bottom line is this. We're being lied to every day, every day, every day. We're being lied to. Don't fall for the lies. The lies are different at every level. Folks, thank you for listening. Joe, it's been a
God
good
bless
program.
each and every one of you. Don't miss tomorrow with the Financial Insider and Steve Quayle joining us for the second and third hour. And that's going to be a excellent and informative show. We'll see you tomorrow. God bless each and every one of you. Have a great night.
Good night.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.